Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Camarilla Cafe, episode number 15. I am your host, Lou LaRocco, and I am joined by Chris Bonica, my usual co-host. And tonight we're also joined by Shane Farmer, who is the managing partner of RemRef LLC. He's a singer-songwriter from Nashville, Tennessee. He's also a health enthusiast, and as well, he's very largely into, I guess you would call them conspiracies, or in some places you'd say skeptical thinking, and a lot of rare earth anomalies and stuff like that. How you doing tonight, guys?
Doing good.
Yeah, feeling great.
So Shane, since this is the first time you're coming on, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, our viewers, a little bit of who we're dealing with tonight?
Sure. I mean, I've always been fascinated in everything from things to do with inner Earth, climate, all the different changes in space weather, and then of course everything from music, songwriting, cooking, photography, video, and then of course a lot of things with marketing and things along that line of business, I guess I would say.
Good cook too. That was an impressive stromboli.
Thank you. Yeah, I like cooking, and I like eating too.
So you've also been in a lot of the chats that we've had, so our regular viewers will probably have a good idea. They'll put the pieces together. They'll start to kind of say, wait a second, I've seen that guy in the messages and stuff. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It's just another Monday night here in the cold upper Northeast.
Yeah. We're getting hit with those like right before you guys are. It seems like it just keeps going up. It's almost like the map is real.
It might be. It could be.
But I mean, you know what it is? Like when I first moved south, I mean, I first hit Florida, right? But when I first moved south, I thought it was going to be warmer. And it
Surprise.
doesn't. Yeah. I mean, we're not getting as much accumulated snow. How much did you get the last time up there, Chris?
Saturday was at least a foot.
Okay, yeah. We're not getting that.
Yeah.
Thank God. And I
Just think we're supposed to get an ice storm here in just a couple days.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are.
I didn't hear about this.
It's supposed to travel, like it's supposed to flank and then push east and then north. So you might get that after we do.
Ooh.
You know, it's funny. It's going to be warm here. So they're saying what we get might just be rain, but you guys might get ice.
So wait a second. So when we say ice, you're talking about hail?
Like frozen power lines.
Oh.
Yeah. And possible power outages for a couple days or so.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't even aware of this. So I guess we might be on next Monday. We might not be on next Monday.
So look out, Tennessee shells, bread and water will be gone.
Oh,
in the mill.
Man. That's terrible. Yeah, this makes me want to go back to Florida. You know, I'd rather get nipped by gators walking through the brush than, it just gets too damn cold.
That bites.
Oh, man. We're starting early. So the last few episodes, Shane, you haven't been here, but what we've basically been trying to do is go all the way back in human history, basically give a good outline of what human religion has been for most of its course, right? Where it started, the best of our knowledge, right? Because we'll definitely get into
paganism,
episodes about,
Babylonia.
yeah. We'll do episodes where we're kind of like going over different creation theories. But we just took the religious route as far back as we can tell, kind of up to the present. And with that, you kind of have a lot of really, really notable changes in culture. You have changes in civilizations. You have changes in politics. So the last episode, we ended on the Freemasons, right? Because they would be the most famous of the mystery schools, right? Well, up until now, they were probably one of the most famous mystery schools. It's a household term. People understand what Freemasonry is, and they've been one of the biggest names. We also kind of brushed on the Skull and Bones. We didn't go over the Bilderberg group, but it was mentioned. So that's kind of where we left off.
Those mystery schools go way back, even the times of Jesus, the Egyptians, and of course, all the way up to even the Revolutionary War with Benjamin Franklin and Washington.
Yeah, yeah. We've had numerous conversations about Freemasonry. Is there anything very quickly you want to mention about Freemasonry that comes to your mind when you think about them?
Well, I would say it depends on the time frame, but modern day, as we've kind of had some discussions, that Illuminati pops in my mind for a modern style of Freemasonry, although I know it didn't originate that way.
You knew what we were talking about tonight. That's where that came from. So, Chris, do you remember where we left off? That's so unprofessional. I'm asking this question.
I believe we just basically left off. Oh boy, actually, what was it? 2 weeks ago? I think my brain is fried. We had left off. We spoke about some impacts the Freemasons had on society.
Right. So they brought along the
what-
banking system. They
Right.
implemented a
Well-
lot of this stuff.
That was more than Knights Templar, but right. I think where we left off was like how we were starting to get into how Freemasonry affected or has impacted society.
Okay. And we didn't really get into, like, we got into a couple of the Masonic conspiracy theories, right? And as you mentioned, the Knights Templar, so it would almost seem as though the Knights Templar were the precursor to the Masons, because the Knights Templar were kind of the crusaders that were going out and settling. And then it seems as though, like, we found out that, what was it, 10 to 20% of the Templars were actually soldiers? That everyone else would come and then start settling civilization. So it would almost seem as though the Freemasons were the second part. Like if you would look at our military as the Marines go in, you'd see the army as occupying. So it would almost be like the Masons were occupying.
Right.
They would come in, settle in, and start kind of doing what the Knights Templar was set out to do.
Right. Your free thinkers, your bankers, your politicians.
Yeah.
Right.
So okay, so historically, then, so we see those two kind of the lines are blurred between the Templars and the Masons. Kind of the same group, but kind of not, depending upon the time frame. You'd refer to it as something different. I wanted to go over a couple of theories here before we get into the prime topic of today. So, and I also want to give a very quick precursor, and I spoke to a couple of people about this. I don't know if you guys saw. So there's a famous comedian on YouTube that's constantly getting thrown off of YouTube. He did a special last week on Wikipedia, specifically. And now, I just want to make a statement that if I can find something on Wikipedia that proves the point, I'll use it, right? Because I guess it's a very widely accepted knowledge base. But he did a couple of tests. And if anybody's interested, just message me. I'll send you the link to the video. He did a few tests on adding information to Wikipedia. And they definitely have, without any shadow of a doubt, a political lean.
Yes, they do.
And they're definitely taking pertinent information out of these articles. And again, most people will accept what's in Wikipedia as truth. So if we could find pertinent information that kind of proves our point, I'll use it. Because most people would take it as a verifiable source. But, I mean, do your own research. A few people have been testing Wikipedia lately, and it does not look very solid.
That is one of the reasons we have gone to older bookstores and sought out older texts, because the older texts aren't as edited as the ones that are now, because of the certain leaning push to remove historical facts and make it more their story, as in his story, to kind of help their political movements. So going and finding older texts at the bookstores, like downtown Franklin, Tennessee, has a great bookstore there. There's actually a couple different locations, and even some of the bookstores in like Bellevue, Tennessee, where you can go and find old texts that are 30, 40, even 70, 80 years old, and find things in there that are pertinent information, which we've especially used for genealogy research, that aren't corrupt and edited out like Wikipedia.
Now, in response to you, what were you going to say, Chris?
I was going to say that. I mean, but doesn't that exactly describe an Orwellian dystopia?
Well,
You know, the fact that a text is being edited directly to for someone else's opinion. You know,
Yes.
well,
Very much so.
the point that I was going to bring up, me and Chris had a long conversation yesterday. Not yesterday, last week. We had a long conversation, and one of the hypothetical questions was, like, we're living through this time, and we're able to witness in real time. I mean, maybe we didn't have the same methods of immediate dissemination of information back then. We didn't have the internet and stuff like that, the same means of communication, right? Like right now, it's almost instantaneous. You could take a video in California, send it over to somebody within 30 seconds, and you could come to your own. You can come to your own conclusions on what you believe you're seeing or what you don't, right? Back then, we didn't have that, but it's become so obvious now. Are we sure that history wasn't being dictated the same exact way back then?
Well, I'm sure there were parts of it that were, yes.
I mean, I'm not talking about major world wars, because obviously you're getting the news from the victor, right? You're not getting it from the victim or the loser. But
that's the same thing.
Yeah, correct. But what I'm saying is, even as far as political agendas, like as we were talking about how when we turned into Rome or the shift over from paganism, we knew that it was a large political movement as well. It was a large propaganda movement and a political movement. So this kind of stuff has been happening all throughout history. At what point, and I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, right? 'Cause it's almost like defeating the purpose of the show. But at what point can we actually trust the information we have if we haven't witnessed it?
And it's funny with what you said there about the paganism with Constantine only going to Christianity because he wanted to strengthen his kingdom. And even beyond his passing, I believe his art actually has pagan forever written on the top of it that the people wouldn't have known.
Does it?
Mm-hmm.
What language is it written in?
I don't know if it's Latin
Is it
or
Latin?
I'm not sure what language, but that's what I recall it saying, something along those lines.
I'd love to check that.
That'd be really interesting to find out more info on that.
Where did you hear that from?
Oh, wow. It's been some time. It probably 10, 15 years ago I heard that one.
So, play me again on YouTube. How you doing? Thank you for joining us tonight. So he asks, is the current Masonic Lodge the same as the Freemasons? So it depends on who you consider the Freemasons. Any people we're referring to that are in positions of power aren't exactly your normal lodge kind of lodge dwelling, beer drinking Mason, right? So the structure has, I believe, 33 degrees. I said 33rd degrees. It has 33 degrees. Everybody moving up those degrees is basically just people making up the pyramid, bringing money in, and holding an organization together. Anybody of notability is theoretically beyond the 33rd degree. You wouldn't exactly just run into them at a lodge. Very similar to the all-seeing eye, which everybody's aware of on the dollar bill. It's a depiction of the pyramids with an eye at the top, the Eye of Horus. So you look at the bottom, and that's first degree, second degree, third degree. That's where the lump population of quote-unquote Masons are going to be sitting. So once you start getting to the top of that, that's when you start getting to the influential people. It theoretically is the same organization, but it's arguably not. Chris, was there something that we read that once you pass the 33rd degrees, you're considered a Knights Templar?
So funny. Yes and no. So there is an order of the Knights Templar, and there are Masons involved, but I don't think it's necessarily the same faction.
Right. It's a different collection of people. And I want to say what's up to I Am Not You. Thank you for joining us. He's on Twitch with us. He says, been happening for a lot longer than most people realize. It's only more obvious now. So I guess that's in response to us talking about the changing of information, propaganda, which we're going to have an episode coming up on that too. And he says one of the prime objectives of secret societies was the hiding of knowledge. So we're going back to ancient times. So yes, that's what kind of rooted these mystery schools, the mystery of the knowledge or the ancient knowledge. That's what helped kind of formulate these different groups that kind of started. And we theorize it was coming from paganism, because paganism was being drilled out of society and people were being killed for practicing paganism. So it's kind of the holding on to ancient knowledge. So let's see. So yeah, thanks guys for joining in tonight. I am not you and play again me. Play again me. Okay. I'm trying to think of what that might mean. But so we're going to go into some of the theories here. Unless you guys have something to add really quickly, we'll start going into some stuff in this article.
I did have one quick thing, which I was trying to search for the Constantine thing, but one thing a lot of people don't know, many of your religions, as you've probably spoken about, all originate from Babylonia. Even hell was actually Hel, and people were said to have been sent there to get better back in the old days. And of course, more modern people back in the 1900s decided to make it into something dark to scare people into getting more butts in the seats, if you will. And even AD 325, Council of Nicaea, they decided which books to keep in and take out of the Bible, editing them. And they basically had everybody leave, left this group of books on the table, and whatever books were left on the table were the ones deemed by God to be included in the book, and the rest were left out. And of course, you know that somebody stayed by to make sure which books would be on the table. But that's pretty much what they did. And I know there's actually been some different spans of the council over time, and even some other future edits, but it's just like history, as in his story. The same thing I think has been done to religions all through time to modify it for their own political means.
Right. And you're saying that hell was considered somewhere somebody was going to get better.
Yeah. Anybody who was sick or going through struggles was sent there to get better.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like reincarnation almost.
Hel. Yeah, reincarnation is believed by many cultures. There's actually been at least a few thousand accounts where doctors have notated those who have come back after there were so many years of age, which we can get into that in another episode. It's very fascinating. And they got it down to such accuracy as knowing the name of the person, who they were, where they lived, how they died. Even some still had family members from the previous life left. They went and met them, never met them before in this life, and they could go through and they could say who each person in the room was to them, like their aunt, uncle, grandmother, whatever, and what they did and what they meant to them. And this is just a small child when they were able to speak, old enough to speak. And there's several accounts like that. It's pretty fascinating.
Oh, wow. I had never heard those before. Well, I've heard of things similar to that, but you're saying that there's a lot of cases of this.
Yeah, reincarnation and near-death studies. Tons of them.
Oh, wow. I can't even remember yesterday, let alone a past life. I don't remember last week.
My troubles seem so far away.
So, okay, I've had this window up this entire time. So let's get into some of the Masonic conspiracy theories here. So, and again, we'll use Wikipedia for a bit just to kind of push the point that these are, I guess, commonly accepted facts here. So it says right here, Masonic conspiracy theories are conspiracy theories involving Masonry, Freemasonry, which, again, can mean anything. It could mean the Knights Templar. It could mean some other different groups. Hundreds of such conspiracy theories have been described since the late 18th century. Usually these theories fall into three distinct categories. Political, usually involving allegations of control of government, particularly in the United States and the United Kingdom. Religious, usually involving allegations of anti-Christian or satanic beliefs or practices. And cultural, usually involving popular entertainment. So it's funny that Wikipedia actually uses those three things, because that kind of is mirroring what would seem is going on today. Many conspiracy theories have been connected to the Freemasons and the Knights Templar with worship of the devil. These ideas are based on different interpretations of doctrines of these organizations. Of the claims that Freemasonry exerts control over politics, perhaps the best well-known example is the New World Order theory, but there are others. These mainly involve aspects and agencies of the United States government, but actual events outside the U.S., such as the propaganda do scandal in Italy, are often used to lend credence to claims. So we're going to start getting into, tonight we're going to get a little bit into why some of this would be perceived this way. So it says another set of theories has to do with Freemasonry and religion, particularly that Freemasonry deals with the occult. These theories have their beginnings in the Taxile hoax. In addition to these, there are various theories that focus on the embedding of symbols in otherwise ordinary items, such as street patterns, national seals, corporate logos, etc. So we covered that last episode, how they put these in to things. There are Masonic conspiracy theories dealing with every aspect of society. The majority of these conspiracies are based on one or more of the following assumptions: that Freemasonry is its own religion, requires belief in a unique Masonic God, and that belief in this Masonic God is contrary to the teachings of various mainstream religions, that the 33rd degree of the Scottish Rite is more than an honorary degree, coupled with the belief that most Freemasons are unaware of hidden or secretive ruling bodies within their organization that govern them, conduct occult ritual, or control various positions of governmental power. So a lot of this would be getting into, I hope Play Again Me is still watching. So yeah, this is kind of going over what you had asked. And that there is a centralized worldwide body that controls all Masonic Grand Lodges, and thus all of Freemasonry worldwide acts in a unified manner. What are you guys thinking as far as the accuracy of this? I mean, it is funny after watching people test Wikipedia and test the information that they actually keep, that this would be sitting here saying this.
I mean, it seems pretty accurate, right? I mean, everything that we've read so far and stuff we've been looking at all points to this direction. And I think the things that we're going to bring up later will help solidify what you just read. So, I mean, that all looks pretty accurate.
So, yeah, this is bringing up a lot of different things here. I'm going to try and cut through some of this. So here's an important thing. Political. So that Freemasonry overlaps with or is controlled by the Illuminati, especially in the higher degrees. Illuminati Freemasons secretly control many major aspects of society and government and are working to establish the New World Order. So now as we're bringing in the New World Order concept, we're bringing in the Illuminati, which is going to be another group that seem to kind of seamlessly merge, much like the way the Freemasons came from the Knights Templar. Some conspiracy theories involving the Freemasons and the Illuminati also include the Knights Templar and Jews as part of the supposed plan for universal control of society. This type of conspiracy theory was described as early as 1972 by multiple authors, beginning in France and Scotland. We'll skip this second one. Well, that does have some meaning behind it.
I do have a theory that there was a part of the Templars that was kind of separate from they in power back then, which is why they pretty much did foot roasting and burning at the stake, sauteing their feet so their toes would fall off to torture them, because they held secrets against the church that they didn't want to get out, which is why they gained so much value and profits. Because they kept paying him to shut up until Friday the 13th, when that unlucky number came to be, when they basically went out, sought out all the Templars to murder them. And then the leader was the one who had his toes sauteed.
Yeah, we had gone over that last episode as well. And Wikipedia claims that there's no link behind that legend and that occurrence. And I think that's a crazy coincidence.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's basically a witch trial.
It is.
It's and especially that they're constantly attached to the occult over and over again. And I do want to point out that Aleister Crowley was a Freemason. In case most people didn't realize that. Aleister Crowley actually started from the bottom, ascended the 33rd degree, and then created his own religion known as Thelema. right after that. So, yeah, he was involved, and he joined the Freemasonries. Basically, he claimed that he wanted to learn knowledge. So if there was nothing for him to learn there, I don't know what he'd be doing there, ascending all of these different degrees. So let's see right here. Here's another one, that Freemasons are behind income taxes in the U.S. One convicted tax protester has charged that law enforcement officials who surrounded his property in a standoff over his refusal to surrender after his conviction were part of a Zionist Illuminati Freemason movement. The New Hampshire union leader also reported the Browns believe the IRS and federal income tax are part of a deliberate plot perpetrated by Freemasons to control the American people and eventually the world.
That's true. They actually modified the Constitution. They got a few different presidents involved with that, including, I believe, FDR. And they pretty much, I think Roosevelt, well, I'm sorry, I thought Teddy Roosevelt even was involved in an earlier portion of that and in between, but I'd have to double check. But my understanding is they modified the Constitution so they could tax us 20% so that we could never technically own anything in the long run because we're always paying taxes to them.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're taxed on everything, right? You're taxed on your check. Then when you buy goods and services, you're taxed on that.
And now they want to tax you if you sell whatever you bought.
Right. Because they lowered the threshold to $600, which is absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you are paying taxes.
Did that actually go through?
Yeah, now you have to claim anything 600 hours or more. They have to show it to the government.
Right.
Your bank.
I heard them
PayPal.
talking about passing that. I didn't know they officially passed it.
Oh yeah.
Woo! How does one get involved in stopping that? Like, how do these representatives just decide? No, but I'm just wondering, like, democracy would imply that the government's doing things that are voted upon by the people, right? And they do a lot of things, like with provisions. Like a lot of states, as they were legalizing marijuana, would put the proposal on a ballot and people would vote on it. So you would imagine that these things that influence people's lives on such a level would be proposed on a ballot of some type and then be voted on. There is no way. I don't care whether somebody's a Republican, a Democrat, a fucking libertarian. It doesn't make a difference. Nobody would want them looking at every single fucking thing we do.
Correct.
Nobody.
I believe this was a part of that Build Back. What was
Build Back Better?
Yeah, Joe Biden's infrastructure bill.
I don't understand what that would have. Like, okay, so apart from the total, complete, obvious act of collecting more revenue off of everything you do, I can't see how building the country back better for the people would involve them having to show any transaction over $600.
It's definitely an Illuminati move.
It's wild.
If you look at all your government heads, you can capture each of them all around the world saying that same set of lines: "Build back better."
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go over propaganda in an episode coming up very soon, because I think for most people that are paying attention to anything around them, it is wildly obvious that 90% of what's being put on that television is total, complete propaganda. It's all bullshit. Yeah. But like I said, I'm just shocked that everybody who lives here is actually content with allowing these people putting in the most unpopular things you can possibly imagine, and nobody says anything about it.
It seems as though it's more fear of people wanting to stand to fight and protect the Constitution and the Declaration as it was originally writ, that we were supposed to do so in a time of tyranny and treason, which has definitely taken place in our country. And if we don't stand, everything will falter.
So I Am Not You says on Twitch, Shane beat me to it. I was going to mention that his reference to the Babylonian hell is very similar to the belief some hold that Earth is actually hell, and that you keep reincarnating here until your soul can properly ascend. Then I Am Not You says the entire wiki article is written to mock and belittle the information provided. And he also states, you're not in a democracy. The U.S. is a representative republic. Yes, it is. But it's funny how in a representative republic, all they say is this is a danger to the democracy. This could be the end to democracy. They're trying to destroy democracy. So for most people not paying attention, they would believe we're in a democracy. But when you engage in conversation and say, well, if we were in a democracy, there would be recourse, then they can't explain that. I'm just babbling at this point. What do you guys think of
Babylon?
I'm Babyloniing.
Yeah, Babylon.
So, and Play Again Me says, did you guys read the sect of the Templars called the Knights Hospitalier? I think we covered them very briefly last week.
Yes, we did. That was actually like 3 weeks ago when we went into the Knights Hospitalers, and how a lot of Knights Templars actually joined their group when they were disbanding. And they were a militant group. Go ahead.
No, go on. I thought you were done.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to throw in there, Chris Cap, what's going on Facebook. He wanted to let us know. I will leave it with this. Anything to become anti-Christian is favored. This cult is yet just another group pretending to be religious. I would agree with that.
Me too.
100%. So here's a couple of other things that we will dive into at some point. It also mentions that groups such as the Ku Klux Klan and the Orange Order are ultimately tied to Freemasonry. There is evidence of that they are kind of an arm of it. Here is some important stuff to run over very quickly. Religious. There are a number of claims predominantly made by conservative Protestants that Freemasons at higher degrees deceive those at lower degrees and gradually reveal a separate occult religion. The Freemasons worship Lucifer or Satan, often attributed to quotes by Albert Pike. And I think did I send you guys the link that I have of just Albert Pike's statements?
I don't know if I saw that.
He was tremendously influential in a lot of major things that happened. Tremendously. The Freemasons worship Baal, Baphomet, Dajjal, or Rahu. They don't mention Moloch, so that's funny. That Freemasonry is a cult in nature and worships their own particular god, such as Gaotu, the great architect of the universe, Gnosis, Jabulon, and amalgam of the gods Yahweh. All right, I know how to pronounce that. Baal and Osiris. So Osiris was the Egyptian god.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
But they keep leaving out Moloch. It's funny how that name comes up so fucking often, including in politicians' emails. But they won't really talk about Moloch. And everybody I know that talks about these groups talks about Moloch. 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 In case anyone wants to search that. Moloch. The Syrian-Egyptian Wahhabi scholar Rashid Rida popularized anti-Semitic and Masonic conspiracies across the Arab world, and which would later be embraced by various Islamist movements in the 20th century. In Rida's worldview, Freemasonry was invented by Jews to plot against world nations. Rida's views would be adopted in the 1988 Charter of Hamas. So then we have, kind of going back to the logos, and just a couple of other things that they're linked to. The Freemasons faked the Apollo moon landings. Freemasons at NASA deceived the public to hide the Earth being flat. What do you think of that, Chris?
I take the fifth.
Do you plead the fifth? Do you take the fifth?
I plead the fifth.
Can I read that one more time? So it says the Freemasons at NASA deceive the public to hide the Earth being flat.
See, I don't personally believe that the Earth is flat because I believe other theories, like an inner Earth theory, I believe that is possible.
You don't think it could be flat?
Because of the rest of our solar system, which you can look with a telescope and watch the movements of the skies.
What does that mean?
I believe that
okay.
we're all spherical in some sort of way.
Okay, so spherical in some sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the Earth is not exactly a ball. It has an ellipse.
It has an
Yes.
ellipse.
It
But
does.
what would
Bit of an
what would
oval.
it cycling have anything to do with it being oval?
What? No, I'm saying that the Earth itself isn't perfectly round.
No, I was asking him. I was asking him because he said that they're obviously it has to be oval from the way you observe the skies. So I'm asking, what is it about observing the skies that would influence, like, lead you to believe it was oval?
The reason I say that is just because of the planetary uh, process of all the other planets in our solar system alone, not to mention other galaxies, which I know people want to say that, well, Hubble could be all made up, all processed, but there are
Well,
some prominent scientists who disagree with that.
What you stated is actually fact. NASA completely admits it because we don't have technology to represent the actual photos that it's sending back. They are all artist depictions.
Yeah, you could say that. I would say that there's also a new thing that they're doing. I don't know if you've heard this. They're going to deploy a satellite where you can actually rent the satellite and get your own Earth images if you want to. And I know somebody could say that they could make that up if they wanted to. But here's a theory I have behind all of this. Back in 1982, the secretary of the White House was actually wrote down what the head of the CIA spoke to Reagan about, that once we get the public to believe everything we tell them and everything we tell them is false, then we will have succeeded at our job. So if you think about all the knowledge that we had before, and then they get involved because they have an agenda, and the time comes up of 1984, and then of course we get to 2021 and we come into 1984, with just all the COVID events and everything. I believe that they want to put so much information out there and get you to believe any area of it could be true or false, so that it makes mass hysteria and nobody knows what to believe.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I have to go back to you saying that the Hubble images are recreations.
Yes.
Because
Well, I don't believe that they're recreations, but
No.
I'm saying some people could say that they are.
Sure, I mean you could say anything's a recreation. I'm
No.
not in the same room with Lou. He could actually be a digital recreation. He may not even be real.
True.
But I'm into astrophotography. I'm a part of astrophotography groups, and no, you can definitely get images like that with a budget system here on land. So if you actually had a telescope outside of Earth, past all the interference from our atmosphere, you can probably get amazing images. And they don't take, it's not like it takes one image and comes up with those images. It's taking all types of images, infrared. It's using all the spectrums of light to capture images. So yes,
That's
absolutely.
phenomenal. I do follow space weather as well, which we're going to talk about in some future episodes. But just even the different spectrums of light they use to watch our sun on a daily basis, just to keep an eye out for solar storms, which we have one hitting Earth tomorrow night, by the way. So keep a mindful eye on that. It changes mental instability, it causes suicide, heart attack, stroke. People don't know that that's with the KP index. When we get bombardment of cosmic rays from the outer limits of space, well, even around the Earth, and the weakened electromagnetic field due to a pole shift, it really causes some drastic health events to people when these things happen, especially at nighttime, because we have lesser protection on the dark side of the planet. But we'll talk about that more later on. But it's awesome that you said that about the telescope imagery and what you do to capture photography of space. It just gives more evidence for your own being to know that it's real.
So on Twitch, I am not used as Lou is deepfake. So here I have an article, right? Business Insider South Africa. And it's basically admitting, all right, so it's not basically saying that they're all fake, quote unquote. It's saying why all images of space are photoshopped. This is from Business Insider, June 10th, 2019. All of them are photoshopped. So NASA and most, if not all, other space agencies Photoshop their images of space. That's right off the bat. So now just think about any single thing the government's ever done when they wash something before it gets to you. Just think about that. And now just think about the fact that they're admitting it's all photoshopped. It's the only point I'm going to make. Because if you choose to trust one, then you may as well just choose to trust them all. But you know what they do.
So you can't. So right, you can't just take an image and then, especially here on Earth, you can't take an image and then that's it. You have to take multiple images and then layer them because of the interference, like our atmosphere and the pollution in the sky.
But that doesn't mean Photoshop.
Well, what is Photoshop? It's an editing program, right? What is a DAW? It's an editing program.
But hold on.
Right?
But the technology that's in our phones and stuff like that do the I forgot what it's called. The long exposure? That's not Photoshop.
What is it doing? It's taking many images and then piecing together the best parts of those images. So yes, it is Photoshop.
It's processing.
No, Photoshop, right, it's processing. And it's method of processing that just merges a lot of photos. But Photoshop lets you draw penises on things. It's totally different. To be in Photoshop and to do a long exposure are two. You don't need Photoshop to do a long exposure. You can use it for that, but that's not like...
No, you can't use it for that. So the reason why you use Photoshop is to layer those images together.
But your phone's not using Photoshop when it does a long exposure. What I'm saying is you don't need it to go in Photoshop for that. My phone does long exposure. It's built into the camera app.
First of all, I'm not using my phone. I'm using my Nikon. And two, yes, you need Photoshop because you could use, you don't have to use Photoshop. I could use Luminar. I have to use an editing software to layer those images together. You're going to take an image with a blue, a red, and a green spectrum. They even have special cameras just to do that. So yes, you need a program to do that. And you're going to take multiple long exposure photos. You could actually do that. You could take, so my camera's 24 megapixels. You could take multiple images of the same thing, like 10 of them, and actually get like a 250 megabyte photo by layering them and getting the little details out of each pixel.
So hold on. Let me read from the article.
It doesn't mean that it's a fake picture.
The most important thing to remember is that these images are not fake. According to the space agencies that took them, they're just interpretations of our reality. Okay, because they're layer caking pictures. That's coming straight from Business Insider.
Right, but who wrote this? It's the same guy that I go on Phone Arena, and he does like comparisons of like DSLR photos against phone photos, and the phone looks better.
Is it the same guy?
No, it's not. I'm just saying this is something that it doesn't matter. He doesn't know how to use a DSLR. That's the problem.
It's real information in the real universe. Yes, the pictures are enhanced or altered, or the colors are changed, but it's done for real scientific reasons, says Dr. Paul Sutter, an astrophysicist at The Ohio State University.
Right.
The images of space are not taken for beauty, but to gain information and insight about the universe around us. One reason is that these images come to us in grayscale rather than color. Colored cameras are of lower resolution than black and white cameras, which means it comes to collecting data, you would want to collect it at the highest possible resolution. Of course, monochromatic photos aren't as usually appealing as colored ones. It's also more difficult to grasp information in a black and white photo. So scientists composite multiple filtered photos into one image to approximate the real color. So, but if you're taking multiple and it's all in black and white, how would multiple of just with no color give you an appropriate real color if they're all black and white and grayscale? If anybody can answer that question, please.
I did send you a link for spaceweathernews.com, which other people could look at themselves if they want to. And for like solar data, they have to show it under different spectrums of light because they can't see sunspot activity or even projecta for coronal mass ejections, or even the plasma buildup, the plasma filaments, and even the electromagnetic activity dispersing and creating connection on the sun without going through different frames of color to be able to filter it out.
But it's saying, but different variations in grayscale?
Well, it would be different variations.
He's saying it's all black and white.
Blue to red.
They're saying it's all grayscale, and they're just merging numerous grayscale, and then they're finding color. There is no color in grayscale.
So
No,
I'm
there's
not
not.
sure how it's done, but they do take old videos and then colorize them.
That is true. Yes, they
And,
do.
and they do that with some kind of filter. I don't know how it's done. I don't know how it knows the color. But
So
yes, you can colorize grayscale.
so they're enhanced or altered, or the colors are changed for scientific reasons. That second word's kind of really potent there. Like, it's kind of sticking out at me, coming from an astrophysicist.
Okay.
Like, especially if something's being used for scientific purposes, why would you want to alter it to study it so that you can get inaccurate information from an altered image? It's for science.
Maybe, I mean, you might alter something just to get a different perspective of it.
But it's altered. You're not getting an accurate, different perspective of something because you just altered it.
Right, but if you're going to look at something in various different ways, you might alter it just to see what the other outcome might be.
I mean, in another fair way,
It's like when I take pictures of Chris from MySpace, and I use Power Go back from the early 2000s, and I pull his nose all the way out to see what he looked like if he's Pinocchio.
That's it.
I'm like, man,
that's a different perspective. Now you learned something.
man, that's a nice picture. I'd sit on his face.
Just remember, some people were colorblind, some people were nearsighted, some were farsighted. So everyone's going to have a different perspective.
Okay, so let's move forward. Now that we've spoken about some of that, maybe some of this is just premonition. It's going to come back up. So, but this is the good part of this show. We do this live, we react to comments, and we kind of get sidetracked a bunch of times. But it is what it is. So right now we're gonna delve into the Illuminati. All right. So this is most likely the only name that's probably more famous than the Freemasons. I would imagine, especially in recent time. It's been really hitting pop culture. A lot of rappers, pop stars have been talking about it. A lot of people have been talking about it. Everybody in the media taking controls from these people. This is kind of where the New World Order starts to come up. I don't know if New World Order was ever exactly a Freemason thing, but yeah, this is kind of where things change. So it says the Illuminati, plural of Latin illuminatus, enlightened, is a name given to several groups, both real and fictitious. So, but I'll say this, Wikipedia is even saying there is a real one. Historically, the name usually refers to the Bavarian Illuminati, an Enlightenment-era secret society founded on May 1st, 1776 in Bavaria, today part of Germany. So I want to just check that really quick to one of my notes here. So what I found was it was called the Bavarian Illuminati. It was actually started in the 1760s. That's a 1776. Okay, so it's off by about 10 years. By a man named Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt? I looked that up in a few different areas. The society's goals were to oppose superstition, obscurantism, religious influence over public life, and abuses of state power. The order of the day, they wrote in their general statutes, is to put an end to the machinizations of the purveyors of injustice, to control them without dominating them. The Illuminati, along with Freemasonry and other secret societies, were outlawed through edict by Charles Theodore, Elector of Bavaria, with the encouragement of the Catholic Church in 1784, 1785, 1787, and 1790. During subsequent years, the group was generally vilified by conservative and religious critics who claimed that the Illuminati continued underground and were responsible for the French Revolution, which that seems as accurate as we can find, that they were connected to all of that. I'm going to siphon through this really quickly to see what's pertinent and what's not. So in subsequent use, the Illuminati has referred to various organizations which have claimed or have been claimed to be connected to the original Bavarian Illuminati or similar secret societies, though these links have been unsubstantiated. These organizations have often been alleged to conspire to control world affairs by masterminding events and planting agents in government and corporations in order to gain political power and influence and to establish a new world order. Central to some of the more widely known and elaborate conspiracy theories, the Illuminati has been depicted as lurking in the shadows and pulling the strings and levers of power in dozens of novels, films, television shows, comics, video games, and music videos. So here, before we even found them in the article, Adam Weishaupt became professor of canon law and practical philosophy at the University of Ingolstadt in 1773. So he was the only non-clerical professor at an institution run by Jesuits. It's funny how this keeps these same groups kind of circle each other over and over and over again, and they're written in Wikipedia everywhere. If you spend the time to actually attach them all together and kind of spiderweb it, they all just coincidentally keep running into each other, and they're the same groups too, over and over again. But it's all a conspiracy. I wouldn't give it too much credence. So the one thing I'm looking at, canon law, does that have anything to do with the Canaanites? By any chance, Shane, would you know anything about that?
That I'm not sure.
Are you messaging me then?
I was sending you something real quick. It's just because we were talking about the Illuminati and the crossover of the Freemasons, the Denver airport. I was sending you some images.
Yes, gotcha. We were talking about that earlier a little bit.
Yeah.
So he says, finding Freemasonry expensive and not open to his ideas, he founded his own society, which was to have a system of ranks or grades based on those in Freemasonry, but with his own agenda. So there, it's kind of stating that he kind of dodged Freemasonry for a bit. So it was a separate group, the Bavarian Illuminati, at least from the information we can collect, because we've also been looking at different sources for about 2 weeks now on a lot of this stuff. So it did start out as a different group. Now, I'm trying to see if the Rosicrucians, trying to find it where it starts talking about where the name came from. Because the name Illuminati is linked to illumination, illuminist, right? Yes. And what it's actually linked to directly is Luciferianism, which is not exactly Satanism. It's a little different, but it is based on the same character. It is based on the Bible. Although, does the character ever state Satan?
Yeah, Satan.
Trying to think. Does it ever use that term?
And Lucifer is named after Venus, the light bearer.
Right. The illumination, the light bearer.
So they're supposed to be two
Baal
separate
was the
entities.
same guy.
Yeah, they're supposed to be two separate entities. That's what always was confusing.
So let's see. So here in the legacy, they're going to claim to you, which let me just establish one thing. If these guys are really, if they really are where they are and they're controlling what they are, this is the type of information that you would find in this. The Illuminati did not survive this suppression in Bavaria. Their further mischief and plottings in the world of Burel and Robeson must be thus considered as the invention of the writers. Despite this has been featured in many modern conspiracy theories predicated on their survival. Predicated. It said predicted. So let's see. Many conspiracy theories propose that world events are being controlled and manipulated by a secret society calling itself the Illuminati. Conspiracy theorists have claimed that many notable people were or are members of the Illuminati. Presidents of the United States are a common target for such claims. So even if this article was to try and throw you off of this specific group that obviously had its run-ins just as much as the other groups did, very similar run-ins, mind you, very similar accusations, very similar goals. This article would lead you to believe that some of these guys, like presidents of the United States, are common targets for such claims when it's openly laid out that a lot of these presidents were Freemasons on the same website. I mean, we did see those, right, Chris?
Right. There's, not just presidents, though. You have a lot of Supreme Court justice as well. You have a lot of senators and congressmen who are also Freemasons. The list is kind of incredible.
This is something I'm reading in that book, Secret History of the World, by Mark Booth. I was just catching this.
Is that whose name just came up in the other thing? Was Mark Booth?
Yes. 1789, King Louis dispersed an assembly and called his troops to Versailles. That was King Louis the 16th. And mass desertions followed. It said on the 14th of July, an angry mob stormed Bastille, and he went to the guillotine in January 1793. When he tried to speak to the crowd, he was cut short by the roll on the drums and was heard to say, "People of France, I am innocent. I forgive those who are responsible for my death. I pray to God that the blood spilled here never falls on France or on you, my unfortunate people." The Illuminati had him killed.
Really?
Uh-huh. Makes you think about all these other people, even in current time, who were supposed members of the Illuminati, even some of your actors who died supposedly of suicide or some bizarre accident. I think even Patrick Swayze was said to have been a part, and he died of, what was it, cancer, leukemia? I forget. But was that really what killed him? It's just all those questions. You never know for sure these days. Was it really a sickness that he just automatically had, or was it given to him?
Right. Yeah, very, very similar to today. So we also have on Twitch, I am not you says mass innations. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Mass innations? Not too sure. Then he says Satan is not in the Bible. And he also says there was the serpent in the Garden of Eden and Lucifer. Even though it is commonly held that the serpent is Lucifer, the Bible makes no such specification. Then he says Satan comes from the Egyptian god set. But so as far as the Egyptian god set, Baal was Babylonian? It was not Egyptian? Because Baal was practically the same character, I believe. The sun god, the illumination. Baal
a lot of your
is
Egyptian
somewhere
came
mixed
from
in with the same.
even your Greek gods. It's as if the religions of the past kept moving through and having name changes and story changes to fit the narrative.
Right. So it was the same characters over and over again, just under different names.
Like a lot of people don't know, there were 8 different supposed virgin births.
Yeah.
In different cultures.
Wasn't Quetzalcoatl also a virgin birth?
Yeah.
And he was Native American. Mm-hmm. The Native American god or influence. So very quickly, we'll hit onto this very, very fast. So we have Luciferianism. And we're going to tie this together very soon. Luciferianism is a belief system that venerates the essential characteristics that are affixed to Lucifer, the name of various mythological and religious figures associated with the planet Venus. It's very good, Shane. The tradition usually reveres Lucifer not as the devil, but as a destroyer, a guardian, liberator, light bringer, or guiding spirit to darkness, or even the true God as opposed to Jehovah. So again, it's not...
There's another God name, yes. Jehovah, Elohim.
Yahweh.
Matter of fact, people don't know, Israel is actually named after 3 gods. Isis, Ra, the sun god, and Elohim. And that's where the name Israel comes from.
Ah, I didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that either.
So it says here, the biblical Hebrew word transliterated as Hallel or Halel occurs once in the Hebrew Bible. Oh man, this is going to be rough to read. The Septuagint renders in Greek as Heosphorus. Heosphorus? A name literally bringer of dawn for the morning star. The word Lucifer is taken from the Latin Vulgate, which translates as Lucifer, meaning the morning star, the planet Venus, or as an adjective, light bringing. Lucifer is the King James Version rendering of the Hebrew word in the book of Isaiah. And according to the KJV-based Strong's Concordance, means shining one, light bearer. Okay. King of Babylon.
Yeah, all your Bible, every religion is based off of astrology.
And now it also says the image of a morning star fallen from the sky is generally believed among scholars to have a parallel in Canaanite mythology. I still wonder if Canon's law has anything to do with Canaanite mythology. A lot of these things seem to be linked. So, and here it says common beliefs. Though associated with Satanism, a philosophy based on the Christian interpretation of the fallen angel, Luciferianism differs in that it does not revere merely the devil figure or Satan, but a broader figure of Lucifer, an entity representing various interpretations of the morning star as understood by ancient cultures such as the Greeks and Egyptians. In this context, Lucifer is a symbol of the Enlightenment, independence, and human progression, and is often used interchangeably with similar figures from ancient beliefs such as the Greek Titan Prometheus or the Jewish Talmudic figure Lilith. I didn't know that he was tied in with Lilith. I thought Lilith was a total separate thing.
Yeah, and in the Bible itself, they say that, well, at least as far as Christians, they don't believe Lilith ever existed in the Bible.
Yeah, it's weird where the disconnects happen. And it's always in the same time frames that things are disconnected.
And it's funny, a lot of religions, a lot of celebrations, even in pagan and whatnot, were all based on fertility. And like Orion's belt wasn't actually a belt, it was actually a male penis. And depending on the rise of the penis was the most fertile time to plant your crops.
Wait, repeat that again? You lost me for a second.
It's
You
because
said penis and he got happy. Yeah.
Orion's belt is actually a male representation of the male penis. So depending on the rise of the penis in the skies was the most fertile for when to plant your crops.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of your old ancients all were really into the male anatomy, I guess, and fertility and recreation and the gift of life. That was basically what they celebrated.
And what a gift it is.
Yes.
So now we also have I Am Not You also says Set was the Egyptian god of the underworld. Mm-hmm. And then he says, good Lord, dude, I told you about Israel at least a dozen times. Shame on you. Thank you for that.
Even Isis was chopped apart by a jealous brother, if I remember correctly. And then the only thing that they couldn't find was his penis. So supposedly his love forged one out of gold, and then he spewed out life of the universe.
I've heard about that one. That's a good one. Yeah. So here we start getting into where some links are. For Luciferians, enlightenment is the ultimate goal. The basic Luciferian principles highlight truth and freedom of will, worshiping the inner self and one's ultimate potential, and to encourage and celebrate the same within all. Traditional dogma is shunned as a basis for morality on the grounds that humans should not need deities or fear of external punishment to distinguish right from wrong and to do good. All ideas should be tested before being accepted, and even then one should remain skeptical because knowledge and understanding are fluid. Regardless of whether Lucifer is conceived of as a deity or as a mere archetype, he is a representation of ultimate knowledge and exploration, as well as humanity's savior and a champion for continuing personal growth. Theistic Luciferians believe in Lucifer as an actual deity. However, Lucifer is not worshipped as the Judeo-Christian god, but is revered and followed as a teacher and friend. Most theistic Luciferians are followers of the left-hand path and may adhere to a different dogmata put forth by organizations such as the Neo-Luciferian Church or other congregations which are heavily focused on ceremonial magic, the occult, and literal interpretations of spiritual stories and figures. I feel like a lot of this would come from Enlil and Enki, in a sense.
Yeah.
Chris, do you know about Enlil and Enki?
No, please tell.
So it was the Babylonian creation tale. Shane, do you know?
I
He could take
vaguely
it.
have heard of some of it, and it sounds as though it ties into the same setup as even Jesus and Mary in some ways. But I would have to go back and review some of the notes on them, but I know I've heard.
So Enlil and Enki was the that was the Babylonian story of creation, and basically, from what I remember, it's been a long time since I read it, but they were spacefarers. They were a different race of beings, and they needed, very similar to the Anunnaki. Well, they were the Anunnaki.
Yes,
They
that's right.
they needed to mine for materials to save their planet. I believe it was their planet's atmosphere. So they needed to
Yes.
mine for materials.
because they cooked theirs.
So they came to Earth. There were two brothers. Enlil was was kind of the group commander. He was the head of the
Yes.
entire mission, and Enki was his brother, who was a scientist.
And then Adamu and Tiamat were made as Adam and Eve. And basically, they genetically modified us in their image to create us into workers that would basically excavate and look for gold and other precious metals so that they could take it back to their own world and harvest.
Right. They
and create a new
basically
atmosphere.
they found monkeys, and the monkeys were superior in strength, but was too stupid to communicate.
And they were told not to share the knowledge. And it is said that they basically went against God, if you will. And there was a lot of anger and just resentment in the powers that be back then. And they would fight amongst each other with lots of rage. But they basically went and taught humans how to not only create things, arts, crafts, learn about everything from beauty and making different products and survival, and basically give them a plethora of knowledge. And they said the gods got angry and cast them down.
Well, hold on. Well, we didn't actually explain. So Enlil was the commander, Enki was the scientist, and they were both brothers. So they were both considered, I guess, back then gods.
Yeah.
Enlil was the one who gave the commandments. Enki was the creator of the beings, right? Enki was the creator. Here's the trick to it. Enki was the creator. Enlil was the one who gave the commandments. They started being slaved, and Enlil was the top of that. He was the one telling them, "Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Work. Don't listen to other things. Just work. Follow the commandments." Enki started kind of sympathizing with his own creation. So Enki started slipping information to them. So now you can start making parallels between the Bible and the story of Enlil and Enki. So then Enki tries to start saving his creation, and Enlil starts destroying his creation. So if you start paralleling that with the Bible, you start to see that there's a way you can sympathize, because the characters in the Bible aren't necessarily good or evil per se. One's the creator and one's the fallen angel. But there isn't really, the good and evil is kind of like taken from the translation. Does that make any sense? Is anything we're saying making sense?
Yeah, totally.
I hope so.
Now, the Book of
Total
Enoch,
sense. I'm
the
just,
Book of Enoch talks of that too.
It's been a long time since I've really gone over that, because I just
Enoch was Noah's grandfather, and he spoke of they that came down. They even speak of them taking him up into a craft with a glass floor and being able to look down on the planet. And it's very interesting, the parallels in that too.
Yeah, the story predates everything else that we have. So the interesting thing is, when you read it, it reads as though it's more recent stories. But it basically plainly states out that they were just another being that was on a mission to accomplish something, and we were basically made to assist in that mission. We were created, and then they pretty much had an internal battle upon whether to wipe us out or whether not to. So basically, if you were to draw parallels, Lucifer was the father of humanity. He was trying to teach humanity, and then he also tried to save humanity. Whereas what we perceive as God was the one that was enslaving us, giving us the commandments, and then was the one that was judging and tried to wipe us out. That's basically the story.
Yep.
I Am Not You knows the story very well.
If somebody would like, there's actually a book. I have it. I just haven't read it in a while. I need to refresh. But it's basically all about this. It's called DNA of the Gods, the Anunnaki creation of Eve and the alien battle.
So just real quick, because he's talking directly about what we're talking about. He says Satan Lucifer is also tied into the Babylonian god Enki, who tried to save the original humans from being destroyed in the flood. According to the myth, he enlightened those that survived the flood with knowledge. Enlil decided to flood the world and get rid of the Adama beast because he could not control them as intended. Enki disobeyed and saved some of the Adama beast, then bestowed on them the knowledge needed to help them progress. So everything that happened in the Bible was kind of like everything that all the stories in the Bible echoed what happened in that story. So
Like
the
plagiarism.
well, I mean, we're starting to find out that everything is plagiarism.
There's also another thought on the idea and the plane of the words of Adam and Eve. If you think of it in the terms of atom and evolution,
Or Adama.
mm-hmm.
That was the beast that they created in the Babylonian tales, was the Adama. They created the Adama.
The first set they created, they said, created all these Nephilim that were giants that roamed the earth and created havoc and mutilated and destroyed everything. So they had to kill those first and second wave before they got the humans right.
So we are really going off on a tangent here.
One more thing I wanted to add about that, because you mentioned about the Garden of Eden, which I know we'll probably talk about this in a future episode as well. But there's several stories about the inner Earth theory in a place called Agartha, and Admiral Byrd was one who had gone on an expedition in the Arctic.
I knew this was
about
coming.
Inner Earth. But the garden that was within that they saw with giant fruits, vegetables, and wildlife, even creatures much bigger than on the surface, was called the Garden of Eden. So it makes you wonder. Of course, I don't know if it's true. I've never been there, but it's been written about multiple times. And then Jules Verne even wrote about inner Earth type stuff with Journey to the Center of the Earth. So if it's true and there really is a Garden of Eden within, that it almost makes the planet like a giant eggshell housing life within it that we don't know about.
I mean, I'm not trying to pick on you. I just know that you brought up Admiral Byrd in probably like the past 5 conversations.
We brought up Admiral Byrd.
No.
In the last podcast.
Yes, briefly, but me and Shane, every time I've spoken to Shane or sent him a message like, "Hey, you want to be on the show?" He started in about Admiral Byrd. I just want to put that out there. And
Well,
every
really
time I was like, "Hey,
fascinating
Shane,
to me.
slow down. we're trying to talk about the Illuminati."
One of the reasons it's fascinating is because all these world leaders, which tie to the money, the people with the money, the Illuminati, they are supposedly all involved in having bases in the Arctic Circle and Antarctica, all underground, like a secret military base that goes back to even World War II and Hitler. So
Yes,
it makes you wonder what they're up to and what they've got going on.
Yeah, there's
what they have found.
Mm-hmm. Because if the inner Earth story is true and they talk about giants 15 to 20 feet tall with 1,000-year lifespan who contain all this knowledge, then that could explain some of our UFOs. It could explain some of this extraterrestrial activity that people see. And of course, one of their extra reasons for pushing a new world order, one world government to control us as slaves.
So I just want to bring up a couple of other things here. So we just, all right, let's kind of reel some of this in, right? So we just brought up the story, the Babylonian tales of creation. We brought up Venus and its associations with different deities at different times. Lucifer as being, and Luciferianism as being the illumination, all of it kind of being linked, right? Baal as well was the source of light, the light bearer in ancient Babylonian tales as well. So this concept keeps kind of coming up, this Luciferianism, right? And this is basically what the Illuminati was kind of obsessed with, which is why it was a mystery school. And it didn't quite go to Freemasonry because Freemasonry was considered expensive. Freemasonry was still, I mean, I can't validate it exactly, but it seems from all of our research that Freemasonry was still, it was pushing a change in society, and it was pushing a lot of different institutions into society, but it was still kind of Catholic in a sense up until a certain point. So
it fits.
What do you mean?
The Catholicism of the past, they would do whatever they could to get people to convert, even torturing and murdering them. They literally murdered over 80 million people through torturous means just to get them, because they refused to convert.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to get somebody to believe something different.
Yeah, right.
This is definitely not true because
Catholicism is to die for it. No, just kidding.
It's definitely not true until the pain ends.
Yeah, right.
If your God is real, the pain will stop itself, right? So it says right here as well, Lucifer was a publication edited by the influential occultist Helena Blavatsky. The journal was first published by Blavatsky from 1889 until her death in May 1891. Rudolf Steiner's writings, which formed the basis for anthroposophy, characterized Lucifer as a spiritual opposite to Ahriman, with Christ being the two forces, mediating a balanced path for humanity. Lucifer represents an intellectual, imaginative, delusional, otherworldly force that might be associated with visions, subjectivity, psychosis, and fantasy. He associated Lucifer with the religious, philosophical cultures of Egypt, Rome, and Greece. I may have read a completely bad passage here. It says modern. Oh, these are modern publications. I was trying to draw a parallel there, and that didn't exactly work. So I'll just jump ahead here. Let me bring this out for a second. So I want to talk about something very quickly here. So we've already found numerous links. Let's just edit out that last section. We've already gotten numerous links here, bringing in government into Freemasonry. And then what I was going to show were notes. But we want to start bringing in evidence, right? So Freemasonry, we admittedly have hundreds of politicians, presidents that were all part of Freemasonry. A Freemason literally doing all of the steps, 33 degrees. So now I want to cover something very quickly. So like people always say, where's evidence? Where's evidence? So I want to go over an area very quickly. So we have Bohemian Grove, which you guys have heard of Bohemian Grove, correct?
Absolutely.
So here's an article from the Washington Post, which I don't exactly consider them that accurate, but most people do. And if they're willing to admit this, I would imagine it's something they want you to know. So Bohemian Grove is an area in Northern California. And the name of the article here is Bohemian Grove, where the rich and powerful go to misbehave. So it says every July, some of the richest and most powerful men in the world gather at a 2,700-acre campground in Monte Rio, California for 2 weeks of heavy drinking, super secret talks, druid worship. The group insists they're simply revering the redwoods and other rituals. Their purpose to escape the frontier culture or uncivilized interests of common man. The people that gather at Bohemian Grove, who have also included prominent business leaders, former U.S. presidents, musicians, and oil barons, are told that weaving spiders come not here, meaning business deals are to be left outside. One exception was in 1942, when a planning for the Manhattan Project took place at the Grove, leading to the creation of the atom bomb. What do you guys think of that? Is that just a normal get together that
I mean,
they have fun and just shoot the shit, maybe play darts?
talk about weaving webs, right? Yeah, it seems like, again, I mean, it just seems like a secret club where people are just getting together and formulating ideas, and it's very much like uh, common thought. So they it seems like they all kind of are on the same page. Um,
I mean,
it's funny. Go ahead.
if it's common knowledge that it led to the creation of the atom bomb, that sounds like a pretty big influence.
Well, I'm just wow.
That's gigantic.
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
You know, I mean, it's saying that they just go to shoot the shit and do men things. That.
No, yeah, I don't think that's what's really going on there.
So it says a spokesperson for Bohemian Grove say the people that gather there share a passion for the outdoors, music, and theater. The club is so hush-hush that little can be definitively said about it, but much of what we know today is that from those who have infiltrated the camp, including Texas-based filmmaker Alex Jones, in 2000, Jones and his cameramen entered the camp with a hidden camera and were able to film a Bohemian Grove ceremony, Cremation of the Care. During the ceremony, members wear costumes and cremate a coffin effigy called Care before a 40-foot owl in deference to the surrounding redwood trees. But what?
That's just wild.
Yeah. Bohemian.
Some of the Hollywood stuff that I've seen, even, well, going into everything with the Illuminati, and I don't know if it would still be considered Freemason part on that, but just how they had these special ceremonies, even eating cadaver meat.
Yeah. It's some awkward stuff to talk about. Yeah. So it says Bohemian Grove's spokesperson calls the ceremony a traditional musical drama celebrating nature in summertime. The spokesperson also said that while Jones' comments are inaccurate, the footage is real. So we have footage of the ceremony. We'll play it in a couple of minutes, and we'll take a look at what it is they're doing. I hope that everybody's starting to notice that even using Wikipedia, using knowledge that's passed down, using rumors, throughout all of history, these secret groups that seem to have definitively infiltrated government, have high positions in government, have positions in the House of Representatives, have fucking positions in every area where there's power. I mean, even this article's saying oil barons. So we're talking people that actually run everything. To the point where they discussed the making of the atom bomb. This keeps coming up in history over and over and over again. You go through the Wikipedia articles and it'll cite numerous, the first thing that it said was the Illuminati was involved in the French Revolution. I mean, they orchestrate a lot. And not only that, the Luciferianism, the Satanism keeps coming up. The same way it was coming up throughout all of the paganism years, kept coming up throughout all the occult connections that came up through the history of Freemasonry. Whether it's called conspiracy or not, it keeps coming up. So,
supposedly during, I think it was the Revolution, one of the couriers of information for the Illuminati was struck by lightning. They considered it an act of God. The lightning killed him, so he couldn't deliver the papers. So basically, they lost the stronghold and couldn't achieve their task at that time. I think it was still a push back then for a new world order, one world government type move, but it stopped it because of the lightning.
Yeah, well, let's hope some lightning hits tomorrow.
Yeah, amen.
Now it says here, another infiltrator, Spy magazine writer Philip Weiss posed as a guest for 7 days in 1989 when the waiting list was 33 years long and the Grove had several thousand members. I can only imagine who these people are. Like, you're talking several thousand. Weiss published the article Inside Bohemian Grove, writing, "You are inside the Bohemian Grove when you come down a trail in the woods and hear piano music from amid a group of tents and then round a bend to see a man with a beer in one hand urinating into the bushes. This is the most gloried in ritual of the encampment. The freedom of powerful men to pee wherever they like, a right the club has invoked when trying to fight government anti-sex discrimination efforts, and one curtailed only when it comes to a few popular redwoods just outside the dining circle.
Bizarre.
Former President Bill Clinton once told a heckler, the Bohemian Club. Did you say Bohemian Club? That's where all those rich Republicans go up and stand naked against the redwood trees, right? I've never been to the Bohemian Club, but you gotta go. It'd be good for you. You'd get some fresh air. So very bizarre. But I'm going to queue up this video very quickly. Let me bring it back to this normal screen. Do you guys think it's a coincidence that these occult kind of accusations just keep coming up and keep coming up? And even in modern days, they just keep coming up.
Well, just like a Masonic lodge, they always say, well, one, they're not going to come to you. They're going to put it out in the open so you come to them, and they'll try to lure you somehow, I'm sure. But they always put everything out in the open ahead of time, it seems. And sometimes I feel like they're always pushing the line a little bit further to see what more they can get away with. And that's never been so true, even recent, with all the COVID and the masking and the regulations and the lockdowns. But if you just think about all the things that have occurred, not to mention just these movies that they put out and these scenarios in the movies, it's like they're wanting us to see it before it happens, almost to give a preview before they let it actually happen.
Yeah,
so
they're
not
projecting.
scared. They do it almost very forwardly.
Right. And I think the fact is, like, history just repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the stuff is ingrained in society. And right, and I think, to add to your point even more, is the fact that, like, the best way to hide something is to keep it in plain sight. And I think a lot of people are just getting very used to seeing this, and it's again, when I try to bring this to people's attention, they don't really care. They're like, yeah, as long as I get through the day, or they really don't give two shits.
Yeah, they've become numb.
Really comfortably numb.
I like that. That's a sneaky way of throwing it in.
Mm.
So here we go. We got some of the footage here. So this is basically Bohemian Grove. It's some of the footage from there. You could see, I guess, Republicans walking around bare naked against redwood trees. I don't know.
And yet, not all agree. Joel Kerr, in all of his works, are of it agree. As vanished Babylon and goodly Tyre, so shall they also vanish. But the wilding rose blows on the broken battlements of Tyre, and walking rends the stones of Babylon. For beauty is eternal, and we bow to beauty.
They keep talking about Babylon.
For lasting happiness, return to one alone, and she surrounds you now. Great nature, refuge of the weary heart, and only balm for breasts that have been bruised. Ye have cool hands for every favored brow, and gentlest silence for the troubled soul. The counsels are most wise. She healeth well, having such ministries as calm and sleep. She is ever faithful. Other friends may fail, but seek ye her in any quiet place.
So I just want to intervene really quickly. Like, does anybody find it odd? Like, I don't want to knock anybody for their religious, rituals or beliefs or personal things, but does anybody feel comfortable with all over the world leaders sitting in an exclusive club in the middle of the woods talking about Babylon in druid robes?
It's very eerie.
You know what's funny? It's not shocking, though. I mean, when you have that much money, what do? You know, when you have that much power.
Do you believe that the monotony, like, forces people to go wilder? Is that kind of the?
I think so because like you don't live in like the natural world. You live, in this absolute false reality of what the world is really like, and I just feel like, yeah, I could totally see them doing this. And this is probably some stupid shit like a toga party that they fucking had in college that now is like, they're rich businessmen and politicians. And, it's gotten to another level.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of these groups start in college. It's the
That
Rhodes
is why I
Scholars, it's
mentioned
the
that.
Skull and
Yes.
Bones. Yeah, but they don't even start with the togas. They go straight. I'll have to take another look very quickly, but I had found footage they claimed was from a Skull and Bones initiation at one point. And again, all of this can be kind of fake. This footage, for whatever reason, they never denied it as being inaccurate, and it's widely considered accurate. So this video is probably going to be as accurate as commonly accepted. I can see if I find the Skull and Bones again, but that didn't look like a toga party. It had a few people screaming. It was pretty rough. So now that hopefully the YouTube algorithm didn't catch me yet, I'll start playing it again. But very quickly, I Am Not You also says, in order for the alchemical process to work, the alchemist has to reveal the plan. Oh, wait. So first he said the term, the revelation of the method was coined by the late James Shelby Downward to explain the alchemical processing of a society by its Luciferian controllers. And then says, in order for the alchemical process to work, the alchemist has to reveal the plan. This is why they tell you what their plans are. You know, they just said that Republicans want to put you in concentration camps, right? All right, let's go back into the video.
Smiling, she will rise and give to you her kiss. So must ye come as children. Little children that believe nor ever doubt her beauty and her faith, nor deem her tenderness can change or die. Bohemians and priests, the desperate call of heavy hearts is answered. By the power of your fellowship, dull care is slain. His body has been brought yonder from the funeral pyre to the joyous pipings of a funeral march. Our funeral pyre awaits the corpse of care.
Here you have the boatman, his face painted up like a skull, bringing the bound body across the water. Again, we'll have it.
So very quickly, if you were having a get together with a bunch of dudes in the woods and this started, what would you do?
I'd very slowly get away.
I have to be really drunk. Like that would have to be.
I think that would make it worse.
Like if I was, I guess if I was with a bunch of dudes and this shit broke out, I'd be pretty upset. Be like, what the fuck is this?
But here's the weird thing. They're all working in lockstep on this. Almost like Project Lockstep. Yep, they're working in lockstep, so they're aware of what this is. This isn't like something that just sprung up.
Obviously.
Like one of those musicals where people just start singing and the town comes out and they all know the dance.
The one thing
Right,
you try to see is if there's actually a sacrifice going on, like a live human sacrifice, but the camera you can't tell. All you hear is a scream.
Let's take a look a little further.
Advanced video of this later And let's see if you can pick up all of the different occultic meanings in the speeches you're about to hear.
Who picked the music?
This is what oil barons and presidents are doing.
Thou, thus buried across the shadowy tide, in all the ancient majesty of death, thou arch enemy of beauty, not for thee the tension tribute or the restful train, fire shall have its will of thee, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Bring fire!
This feels like Eyes Wide Shut. Okay, so let's switch over real quick so I can get past this ad. And again, we're going to try and dodge the algorithms. I don't know if anybody remembers when we were getting cut off nonstop on YouTube for that.
Yes, we were all saying keywords. I think we had enough at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people like weren't exactly impressed by the structure of going about that, so we changed a little. This is a little more proper for what we're doing right now, because again, this is the only video evidence we have of this event that we know of, right? So, and it is pretty awkward. I mean, I don't want to keep saying that, keep pushing it, but this is a little bizarre. That all of these people
talking to an investigator, probably, I want to say 7 months ago, and in the middle Tennessee, I'd say Franklin area, they were actually involved in seeking out and finding a lot of this evidence of these goings on of situations with even the child abduction cases and the adrenochrome and basically the torture. And
this is in
murder.
Franklin, Tennessee?
The person that I talked to is in Franklin, Tennessee.
Okay.
And was very involved in investigative work and worked with a lot of higher up people. And that person basically swore it was all true.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And did they have actual, like, provable associations? They like, you verified what they had done.
They worked with 3-letter agencies.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that there were some in the outer Nashville area. There were a few kidnappings reported and some weird stuff. They caught a bunch of people involved in a ring.
Well, in Franklin, Tennessee, there's a big human trafficking ring.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And they basically, I have another friend who helped one of the 3-letter agencies with cameras catch some of them, and they were undercover at one of those spas.
Really? So and they're saying that it's linked to a cult as well?
Yeah.
So and it's verified. They know this.
Yes, and there's even been cases of abductions going on even around Spring Hill and Franklin Target stores.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into this for a moment again. Let me switch everything over. Here we go.
When will ye learn that me ye cannot slay? Year after year ye burn me in this grove, lifting your puny shouts of triumph to the stars. But when again ye turn your faces to the marketplace, do ye not find me waiting as of old? Fools! Fools! Fools to dream ye conquer care!
Nay, thou mocking spirit, it is not all a dream. We know thou waitest for us when this our sylvan holiday has ended. We shall meet thee and fight thee as of old, and some of us prevail against thee, and some thou shalt destroy. But this too we know. Year after year within this happy grove, our fellowship bans thee for a space. Thy malevolence which would pursue us here has lost its power under these friendly trees. So shall we burn thee once again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free.
Midsummer.
Burn me once again! Now but leave flame, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
Thou, prince of all mortal wisdom, thou of Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel.
They talking to Moloch?
Owl of Bohemia. We'll search that in 2 minutes. This area's got to be most likely protected all year round, right? I would assume.
Yes, absolutely. Especially after he infiltrated.
No, but I mean, like, even when they're not meeting over there, like, there's no way you could go walking in the woods and find a giant owl.
I'm sure you can. Well, you want to take a trip? You want to do a little Camarilla Cafe trip?
Oh, man, imagine getting caught out there by a bunch of dudes in cloaks.
Oh, my God. Please not do this.
I mean, you know what they can do to you legally, right? They can absolutely destroy your life. They can look at every fucking transaction you do over $600. Could you imagine what they do to you not in the public eye? Woo!
And they pretty much own every platform. So every text message, every video, any photo you send, they've got it all.
But I'm sure, you know, destroying your life in the public forum is harsh enough, which they're more than willing to do. Imagine what they do to you out there if they caught you in this.
Yeah.
O great owl of Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adjuration.
You think about the people that some say were killed by they, like Michael Jackson, John Lennon, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Abraham Lincoln, Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison. Those are some of many that were said to have been killed by the Illuminati. Even JFK Jr., which it's funny that days after mentioning to Hillary Clinton that he was going to run against her, he ended up in a plane crash and died.
Begone, detested care, begone. Once more, we banish
And we have another commercial coming up. So yeah, I don't know. Let me see if I could skip forward to some more action here. This is getting a little droning. If anyone wants to check it out, you can easily find it on YouTube. I mean, again, this is an elaborate show. Look at how many people are there.
A lot of people there.
This guy's stupid big head is in the way.
I didn't realize there was all those people there up until now.
Oh, yeah. Well, the article said thousands. I mean, you're talking about all the world leaders. It's not just Americans that are there.
Now we're going to get to some
it's everywhere.
advanced video. And we'll go play by play through some of the more occultic statements. Like, we shall read the sign in your burned effigy, the bound body. That's exactly what the Druids actually did. They would roast cats, goats, oxen, horses, and watch the pain of how they died, and from this extract some type of mystical energy force or power, and also be able to tell the future.
Yeah, tell the future. Let's raise gas prices and
Make the future.
17 of the oil moguls are there. It's just like Nancy Pelosi not doing insider trading when her husband's one of the biggest hedge fund managers in the United States.
Well, she just put it out there that insider trading is legal. That's exactly what she just put out.
Well, hold on. Okay, so the way around that, right, is that insider trading would mean that somebody has insider information. They're not literally the one turning the wheel. They have the information, and they're tipping somebody off with the information, right?
Right.
She is the wheel.
Yes. That's why that reporter posed that question to her.
Oh, I understand.
Which was a beautiful question. I can't believe, like, he put it that bluntly.
But what I'm trying to say is, in a society where we've learned to communicate in legal terms with everything, where every word in the sentence can change the whole entire meaning of the sentence, in a society where we need to define things so knife-edged, that she wasn't tipped off and then tipping somebody else off.
No.
She literally implemented the law, and he knew it was going to happen, and he invested.
Exactly.
So theoretically, it's one can create the argument that it's not insider trading.
Right.
That's in a court of law. Now to
right
us, common folk, and to anyone who has any fucking types of brain in their head, that's fucked. But what I'm saying is, as her standing there as a representative who's a professional in stating things in very obtuse ways, in ways that can be taken numerous ways, can mean numerous things, answer a question without answering a question. Most politicians are fucking beyond professional in that. Unless they're intentionally saying something on purpose to kind of, project what they're about to pull or rat somebody out. Everything they answer is in that fashion. So that was done completely on purpose. And if they were to go to court, and of course they'd have some kind of court person that they go to Bohemian Grove with, that's buddies with them, and then they're going to get a decision in their favor, because everything just seems to be enforced by word games. Don't say anything that implicates you.
A lot of these moves are to basically manipulate the laws even, and put them in a position to get laws changed in their favor. Almost an act of Sun Tzu, do the opposite of what people would think. Kind of like mask mandates and the Supreme Court, or even state laws, which people don't realize your local state government is stronger than the federal government. And you basically, your sheriff, you're as good as your sheriff. Your sheriff can say, I'm not going to follow through with this. I'm not going to support this. And the feds can't do anything. As a matter of fact, your sheriff can arrest a government fed. He can even arrest the president if he wants to, if he's in his jurisdiction. And the funny thing about it is just what these Sun Tzu ideas, they manipulate laws and they try to get you to think we're going to go to court over this and try to get a law passed to protect you over this mandate. But you don't realize you were already protected because of what it said in your state constitution. So they're putting a revision in there that makes that change the law. And then they put an expiration date on it. So they basically get around it. So the next time around, that safety precaution that was put into that new law is now blocking you and causing an open door for them to break the law on you more, go against the Constitution more, easily getting away with throwing away your rights. And I think that's what they're doing, trying to go to court to create new tactical moves so that we basically lose more and more freedom.
Well, you're forgetting about emergency use powers.
Oh, yeah. You mean like the vaccine mandates for vaccines that aren't even legal or approved, and the ones that are supposedly approved don't even exist in the United States yet. They're mandating all these
by Pfizer.
Yes.
We're gonna get into propaganda. I was letting you rant because
Yes.
sometimes it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Let's just finish this video off, and then see where it goes after that.
Before we do that,
Yes.
it's brought to you by Pfizer.
Now you just need a little kazoo music.
Alex Jones of Bohemian Grove, brought to you by Pfizer.
Of the ritual you just witnessed, it becomes clear. It is a mixture of the Babylonian Canaanite cult of Moloch fused with ancient druidic rites, where you have the female side of Satan, which they first call out to in the she, and then towards the horn god with the he, mixed with Masonic rites from Scotland. It's very likely that many of the 1,500 to 2,000 member crowd had really no idea what they were actually watching because it was thinly veiled. Here we have some more enhanced video as the boatman, again with his face painted up like a skull, pulls his boat across the small lake towards the high priest with the red of his cloak visible, with his hand outstretched as if he is pulling the damned soul towards him as they throw off their cares, their conscience for what they have to do in the world. Also, you have the arrangement of the circle of higher level priests around him, the high priest in lighter colors, and then the outer rings of red, and then those in black. This is consistent with the darker workings of the occult, not just with the Western countries, but also worldwide. Now, when you see that black edge coming to the field, that's because we zoomed in on the video, and many times the picture was almost out of the screen, so that's the edge of the field or the view of the camera.
Are there any women at these things? Or is it just
No, it's just dudes. But then again, it's 2022. Who knows who's allowed?
It's a lot of sword fighting. I take it.
We'll get back to more enhanced video of the ritual here in just a minute. But remember PJ, the little demon down in the corner, the left-hand corner of the program, sweeping up the ashes with little horns? And how can you forget this? The image of a human body burning on the altar. Again, this is what they were handing out to those that were witnessing these macabre activities. But again, from Babylon on into ancient England, the word bone fire, meaning human sacrifices being thrown into fiery pits, turned into today's bonfire. After the sacrifice, members of the cult would sweep up the ashes of the victim and use them in future rituals. One of the things that is extremely obvious by looking at the program handed out to Bohemian Club members is the person creating the program had a deep understanding of the occult.
I mean, this isn't Broadway. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, this is what a mass looks like. Well, not a Catholic mass, but you guys know what I mean. So we're gonna go like 2 more minutes forward. I'm seeing it. A few things becoming a little clearer. He said it was enhanced footage. I found one good picture on Google of the owl. There's a face looking at it too. Did you see that? Wow, look at the size of that thing.
Fire shall have its will of thee. Begone, old care, and all the winds make merry with thy ducks. Hail, fellowship's eternal flame. Once again, midsummer sets us free.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much more we got to watch of that. Again, anyone wants to see this video, just shoot me a message. I'll send you the link, or just search it on YouTube. Alex Jones, Bohemian Grove. It's a famous thing. It put him on the map. He's one of the biggest guys, I think, in the world right now, especially when it comes to conspiracy theories, or I don't even know if you can call that conspiracy theory. I mean, whether they were playing a game or not, I guess, is still a skeptical question, right? Because from the footage, you can't tell whether it was a real body. It could have not been a real body. But there's still a lot of question as to why these rituals never exactly go away. Like in all of human history, why didn't they do I don't know, a synagogue-style mass or a Christian mass? Like they decided to do some type of Druidic, weird, in the redwoods, closed off, with fire and owls, and am I making sense,
again,
guys?
It is. I mean, it is California and Hollywood, right? So everything's a big production out there. So, I mean, could it be that just giving these rich fuckers a show, something to say, hey, I got my money's worth? I don't know.
Hey, Shane, where'd you go?
I'm still here. I was actually looking up a few things. I sent you a few things regarding Lucifer that you might find interesting in the chat.
Yeah, we're gonna look into that in 2 seconds. And I also want to review over what I Am Not You said about the revelation of the method. That's very interesting. I've never looked into really like a alchemy or alchemaic processes. They tell you what their plans are. I knew that they tell you exactly what's happening, but I never knew why. So this is a better picture of the owl. That's a gigantic owl. If you remember what size those guys were to the steps they were climbing up, and you look at this picture to the right, those are the steps.
It's got to be 30 feet tall.
I think I read somewhere that it's 40 feet.
40 feet, it's big.
30 or 40 feet. So now I'll pull it in with them standing there again. Yeah. So now look at them in a next to the steps. That's a gigantic owl. What does that say? Weave and come, spiders not here?
Well, doesn't that go back to their motto? Which of course, I forgot what it was. Weaving spiders come not here.
Is that what that was supposed to say?
Probably.
Yeah, it looks like there's the G wrapping around the weaving spiders come not here. Mm-hmm. Yes, these are some pictures that come up on Google immediately. There's Richard Nixon. That looks like Reagan. I'm not sure, even though somebody will probably chastise me for not knowing who this guy is in the middle. I can't tell who this guy is in the middle. But I mean, obviously, you're seeing two ex-presidents around him. And we all know that just because a president doesn't leave office, they still retain an absolute tremendous amount of power. They make more money, supposedly, I guess, if you're not talking about stock options, insider trading, and being bought out on law. You know, they go and give speeches to giant corporations years after they've been in positions, and they make millions of dollars per speech. Even Hillary Clinton was making millions, and she was Secretary of State, right?
And she lost.
Well, that's why I said she was Secretary of State. Like, that's the position she had. And she was giving speeches to Wall Street. So here's another picture of them standing in front of this owl. You know, the funny thing is, why are there so many pictures from there, but there's only one video? It's not as though, so obviously somebody's been in there with a camera more than once. Now, I have a theory that they let Jones do that, or they walked him to it, because they knew that he was a bolsterous enough of a personality that even if he was being honest, many people would just, you know, not listen, which people still do. A lot of the things that he's said over the years have come true completely, but still most people won't take him seriously at all. So it's just funny. I mean, they got a lot of pictures here. And then here, Urban Fictionary. Mark Twain did not sacrifice babies to Moloch. So yeah, I hope that we're proving the case, you know, that it's not a coincidence. Over hundreds of years, thousands of years, these secret groups, look, that is why they're in secret. It's obvious. That's why they're in secret. All the way back from paganism, they started with the witch hunts, the trials. They started trying to shut people down. They started torturing them to turn them to Jesus. These people went into hiding. They hid. They tried to keep kind of these secret knowledge, this alchemaic knowledge, the Babylonian knowledge, all of the tales. They tried to keep all of the knowledge. They kept it shut down. You know, I would say that from what we've read, I don't think that all of these groups were at all times all involved with each other. I think they did kind of intersect. It would make sense.
Yeah, I think at some point, you know, well, if we're going back to the whole idea of the New World Order, right? So at some point, yes, they would have to all become one, right? Or at least share the same goal. Maybe they're separate entities, but they share the same goal, you know?
Well, I did find, well, here's the thing. So I bring up that it looks like it was infiltrated because we do have proof. There were writings from famous Freemasons to other Freemasons about how people were appearing illuminated.
Right. I was wondering when we bring this up.
So there were periods in time. I'm trying to look through my notes. The funny thing is I'm not finding it in these notes, and I don't know why.
So you had a few things.
John Quincy Adams. I quoted. Go on.
All right. I was just going to say, right, you had two students of Weishaupt, right, which was Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton, right? And they were bringing, the illuminated idea into Masonic lodges, right?
That's why Washington got out of it.
So Right. So in 1789, John Robinson warned that Illuminati had infiltrated into their lodges. Right. Um, I'm I'm trying to read my notes, and I was writing so fast. We have David Papin, the president of Harvard, issued warnings to the graduating class of that same year that the influence of the Illuminati was having a. I'm sorry, to the graduating class of the influence of the Illuminati in government and religion. So that's two. Um, right. And then you mentioned Quincy Adams. Quincy Adams had written letters to a Colonel William Stone, who was a top Mason, and his letter was basically, well, the three letters were basically stating that Jefferson was using Masonic lodges for subversive illuministic purposes.
And that's Thomas Jefferson.
Yes, Thomas Jefferson.
So he was there too.
Right. So, and if you want to call it bullshit, these letters can be found in Philadelphia. It's not like they're, fictitious letters. These letters are still around. So, and they're in Philadelphia. I think either, I have to look up to see exactly where they can be found. But they were, what I had read, that they are in Philadelphia. So you can still see them. And then there's that whole story about William Morgan, right? William Morgan being a Mason, but I don't think he was a very high level Mason. And he was going to write a book about what the going ons in the Masonic lodges. And some people say that he fled to Canada, and some people say that he was murdered. But supposedly, someone overheard a high-ranking Masonic official that he was murdered. He was taken care of.
Really?
Yes. I would have to find where I heard that information. Where I read that information. But yes.
Apparently, St. Thomas Aquinas was also a practicing alchemist and involved in illuminating people.
Really?
Yeah, he felt like the spiritual world would help. Like you could maneuver the spirit world to get things to move in your favor.
In this world.
Yeah.
So he's basically bending around the realities to affect the reality in which we physically manifest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we've also collected that. So, okay, let me slow down for a second. So the Illuminati is made up of numerous groups, right? So they were the ones that were aiming for one world government to unify everything in the end, right? So one would think that you have to kind of scatter yourself around, create kind of different groups that are all going to work together, and then eventually kind of come to the top, right? That famous. So before I bring that up, I'll bring this up right now. Shane sent it to me. So here's a breakdown of the United States dollar that he had sent earlier. So here, the Inuit Coeptus, is that how you pronounce that?
I think it's Coeptus.
There's no L. Coeptus? So that stands for announcing conception. Next to it is the illuminating eye, right? And that we've already spoken about numerous times. Illuminated eye, great architect, Lucifer. That's also the eye of Horus, correct? I said Horus. Now down underneath that, and that's, I believe that's all in Latin. Novus Ordo Seclorum means secular new order. Then here you have 13 letters in motto E pluribus unum, which means one of many. Then you have the 13 illuminated stars, 13 enlightened colonies. Now that, I haven't done much research into the enlightened colonies. If anybody knows about that, feel free to to throw some stuff in that you would know about that. Then we have here, so 13 seems to be a consistent thing coming up. So here are the 13 letters in motto, one of many. Now down here we have the 13 layers of brick, 13 original colonies, 72 bricks, 72 powers of the name of God in Kabbalah. Here we have MDCCLXXVI, so it's 1776, date Illuminati formed. And then we have 666. I'm not too sure. I don't want to sound too skeptical. There's no way of really I wouldn't be able to figure that out. And I don't know how I would explain that, to be honest.
Speaking of the 666, did you ever think with the 6 feet apart with everybody, with these mandates and the masking, I've actually understood that they are a satanic cult ritual.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, if you look up satanic cult rituals, they all involve putting on masks, and it has something to do with rebirth.
Yes.
So mask everybody.
I forget what it was. Some of the letters, if you connect them, I believe over the pyramid, they're supposed to create a perfect pentagram.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't personally know how that would be done, but
I heard it explained once, but I forget the full explanation.
So moving along, we have the 13 come up again. I didn't realize everything's in counts of 13s here. 13 layers of brick, 13 letters in the motto, 13 illuminated stars, also meaning the enlightened colonies. Wow, so 13 arrows, 13 leaves, 13 berries, different powers possessed by the 13 colonies. And now we have 9 tail feathers, 9 spheres risen through to return to heavenly state. And it's a phoenix, not an eagle, rising from the ashes or ignorant world. So that's a quick look at that. Let me switch screens real quick while I bring up the other photo. We also have I am not you says to expand on this natural. Wait. Okay. So as pertains to the revelation of the method, there is some natural law that costs them if they impede on our free will. Therefore, they should get our consent or its closest analog, oblivious submission. Voluntary servitude is no servitude at all in their mind. And then they have to expand on this natural law or karma. One would incur a karmatic loss by impeding on another's free will. Think golden rule here, it is connected. One does not take a karmatic hit if they receive consent or submission. So that would kind of be like the mythology of letting the vampire in. So the vampire can't do anything to you, won't harm you, unless you invite it in. And I just received another message. That was a little odd. So give me one moment here. Okay, so I just got a picture sent to me. Check this out. This is a Bible from the 13th century. Read the description at the bottom. Okay, let me bring this up. This is pretty interesting. Thank you. One of our contributors, Charlie, just sent me something. Let me see if I can get this on screen for you. This might take me one moment because I'm kind of dumb. So
I know we had mentioned it also the last time, but how they designed, Washington D.C. Being the streets forming into a pentagram, and also I had read that London streets were designed. Let me. It says here, instead of the streets were to be mapped according to the pattern of the Kabbalistic tree of life. And this is talking about London.
Really?
Yeah. So I tried looking it up. I mean, I'd have to see it like an overlay of how that is true. But if that's
Sandusky, Ohio also has that Masonic sign and shape. Uh, the whole entire town is designed after Masons.
really,
So what I'm going to do is, since I got this up right here, so he sent me this photo. I think you guys could see it, right? So he sent me this photo right here of this Bible. And when I scroll down, it says, active late 13th century, Circle of the Master of Girona, Gratian Decretum with Glossa Ordinia by Johannes Theotonicus of Halberstadt. I should really, if I'm going to keep doing the show, I should really start learning these names. Revised by Bartholomew, I knew that, of Brescia. Frontispiece de late 13th century. So this is the Princeton University Library, Manuscripts Division, Department of Rare Books and Special Collections. And it says, this is one of the finest of all 13th century Bolognese Decretum manuscripts. It was created within the university system of book production, which parceled out the work of copying the text among multiple scribes. The task of ornamenting the book was similarly shared by several illuminators. Most of its miniatures are by the Gregory Gratian Shop, a rotating stable of 5 or more illuminators who specialized in legal illuminations and also painted the nearby scenes from Glenshire. 13 miniatures, including this one. Wait a second. 13 miniatures, including this one, are by a different artist working in a more sophisticated style inspired by a Byzantine art, whichever way. This miniature serves as the frontispiece for De Pontitia Gratia's treatise on penance, included in the... So, okay. So, confessing to a friar. This is weird. Preaching the sacrament of confession went hand in hand during this period. So, okay. So he sent it because it's stating that it was done by illuminators. Which is a little strange.
pretty interesting.
And this is in the Rare Book Library. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're part of history. That's without any shadow of a doubt. So anyone that says that just keeps writing it off.
And I mean, if that's a 13th century book, that's way before 1776 when they were supposedly formed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And now we also have, so I Am Not You is back. He says the Bible assigns 13 the meaning of rebellion against constituted authority, plus the depravity that caused Satan to rebel against God. The occultist assigns 6 to represent the number of man, and the number 7 to represent the number of divine perfection. Thus, as a person climbs that Jacob's ladder towards self-perfection in the realm of the occult, the number 13 represents the state of divine perfection, self-achieved perfection, and illumination. So 6 plus 7 equals 13. That's interesting. So I do, since we're here and we tend to get into these ideological arguments or debates, right? Do you guys feel that it's any better if you sucker somebody into doing something for you as opposed to actually asking them the favor? I mean, I understand that they're not exactly coming from a divine or morally high viewpoint, right? They're looking to obtain self-perfection and self-divinity. So it's a very withdrawn religion, right? Like, it sounds to me like you have a very blatant disregard for others. You're concerned about yourself. And I guess it's a lot harder to get somebody to do what you want them to do without requesting it, right? Like you're playing a game for consent. I mean, that would explain why a lot of times in history, it would seem why the government's consistently pushing something. But the second people start to kind of become a little aware or they start to push back, it eases up. Because it's kind of like herding the cattle, right? Without grabbing the cattle by its throat. And we did read earlier that they do not want to dominate by obliteration. It said it in Wikipedia. I forgot the line that I read.
They want you to walk off the cliff
Right.
by your own choosing.
Right, but it legitimately stated that they're looking for absolute domination without obliteration. Mm-hmm. So they need to dominate you without you kind of, with you realizing it,
Isn't
whether
the best type of
consciously or not.
slave a slave that doesn't know he is a slave?
Right.
Right. So,
In a sense. Do you guys think that makes it more nefarious or worse? I would think from a karmatic perspective that if you're actually going in that type of deviance to get to that end result, I find it fucking way worse.
Me too.
oh yeah. 100%.
Like that's practically evil to plot something on that level.
Malicious intent.
Correct. Because the intent is there and you know whether you're getting them to step into it or not. If they're unconsciously agreeing, let's say, if someone's not intelligent enough to catch on to the fact that you already told them, it's sleight of hand, it's still a lie.
Right. And in a way you're taking away free will because you're guiding them there unbeknownst to themselves. So, I mean, you know, it's different if you gave them a choice. Said, "Hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. You know, either get on board or you're going to get on board one way or another, you know, or you know, whatever." But like, I feel like you're taking that choice away.
Right. You're leading them to the slaughter. They're already in the slaughterhouse. You're petting them along the way, making them feel good about it.
Correct.
It's almost like the political stage today. You question, are people's votes really legitimate? Or is it all theater of the gods? Is it all smoke and mirrors?
That's
Well,
give the
just make
illusion of
sure
choice.
just make sure you phrase that correctly because we can get a lot of trouble.
Well,
Misstating that a certain way.
With these super PACs, does that even really make a difference who your candidate is, who you're rooting for?
I never understood the concept of super PAC. I hear that term used all the time, and I feel like I use it. I hear it used in numerous contexts as though a lot of people don't understand what it means. They just throw it out there.
It is. So I've read the definition a bunch of times. It is. It's. I don't know. It's hard to. It's hard to picture in my mind what a super PAC really is. It's just like it's bullshit. You know, I just read an article how Warren Buffett put $110 million into this super PAC, and I'm like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you know,
does that mean that like this is a line of candidates for this specific election? Like this is the Democrat Party, and this is the Democrat super PAC.
Bernie Sanders was winning when he was going against Hillary. He was beating her in
popularity, and yeah, I remember.
But she kept on getting the super PACs, which was then thrusting her way ahead of him.
Dominion. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look up what a super PAC is.
Yeah, because I never actually understood that concept, and I feel like everybody is a legal professional, and I just want to say, like, me and Shane actually spoke about this earlier, and we should start prefacing this show with like a warning, right? We are sharing information and we are sharing personal knowledge. We are not claiming to be professionals. We are not claiming to be I mean, then again, I mean, we're in a world where a lot of professionals claim they're professional and they're completely fucking not, right? Let's just state it for what it is. But we're not claiming that we are experts in fields. I would say that we've numerous sitting here right now have at least been researching this heavily for well over 10 years, some of us 20. I think we're pretty knowledgeable in it. I think we pay attention to what's going on. So I think it's a pretty... we have some insightful views that might have something behind them, but we are not in any way, shape, or form trying to sell ourselves as professionals or somebody who you should particularly be listening to unless you do your own research, which nobody does any fucking research anyways. But
Right.
you should do your own research and come to your own conclusions. But once you hear it from us, you should go on and do more research. And please, if you find something, hit me
don't
back.
stop questioning.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it all comes down to the mighty dollar, right? So a super PAC is a political committee that can solicit and spend unlimited sums of money.
What?
A super PAC, right? A super PAC cannot contribute directly to a politician or political party, but it can spend independently to a campaign for or against political figures. These committees are also called independent expenditure-only committees.
That's where those 501c3s we talked about earlier come in play. That their loophole so that they can get away with things and do whatever they want, stay away from getting taxed. And then, of course, if, say, I have a 501c3 and I say too much about patriotism and doing good for others, oh, well, you got a comma in the wrong place there, so we're going to fine you thousands of dollars and shut down your 501c3 because you're not going to our agenda.
Well, that's what not-for-profit organizations are for.
Yeah.
They're all to launder money. It's all a gigantic money laundering scheme. And every one of them has a non-for-profit philanthropic group that somehow they make more money. Somehow their account goes up. But their organization is not for profit. It doesn't make any sense at all. And not for profit just dodges all taxes. So they immediately start philanthropic. I'm saying the word wrong, but
Philanthropic.
philanthropically start donating money through their not-for-profits.
The
And
Gates
somehow
of
they're-
Soros. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they don't do it. They're good guys. they're really, really good guys.
Political Action Committee.
I am not you on Twitch also says this all ties in heavily to the law of one. I'm a little fuzzy on this, and it's been a very long time since I've read it, but there are two paths to ascension, service to self or service to others. Those paths are obviously extremely polarized, so the belief is that one must completely follow one path or the other. There is no mid-ground. In essence, the elite have chosen service to self. And he sent me a dictionary, a Merriam-Webster dictionary. And then he says, what are you, a pussy like Joe Rogan?
Oh shit.
So we had...
No,
is this the dictionary thing you read, the Merriam-Webster? Super PAC?
No. Okay, so it goes into a little bit more detail, the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Right, because they talk about how they could get... So, like, okay, for instance, I do payroll for unions. The union employees contribute to the union's PAC, which is the Political Action Committee. Those unions, I guess, can then take that money and put it on the nominee who they feel best suits their interests.
So they can only place one super PAC. They can't fund both sides of a war like the Rothschild. They only pick one candidate, and then that's the super PAC. That's it. Like
that's the super PAC.
And it's a company that backs it. So that means anybody in that company that puts money towards is just immediately obligated to that one person?
Yes.
Really?
You have no decision of where that money goes.
So you could be working for a company and you can completely not... Let's say you had all the Trump voters in 2016. and they're working for all these corporations. They're going to go vote for Trump, but their corporation is taking that money, creating a super PAC, and then giving it to Clinton, regardless of who is working there feels it should go the other way.
Correct. You're just, I mean, you don't have to contribute to the PAC. It's your choice to contribute or not.
Okay. But your company
okay.
doesn't contribute the other way is what I'm saying. Like it's an established, like, boom, this is who we're going for.
Pretty much. I'm sure that they might have a town hall with the union members, and the union members, you know, might express their feelings. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but yeah, they're gonna give to whoever they feel is going to represent them better. I mean, that's basically it.
It's a little screwed.
Yeah, it's quite bullshit. But I mean,
it's quite bullshit.
Instead of doing that, why don't you just contribute to the candidate that you feel like? Okay, so I contributed to Tulsi Gabbard when she was running, you know, because I felt she was the best candidate out there, you know.
Well, because I'm sure that there are enough people that just feel that their company would pick whatever politician is best for the choice, right? I Am Not You also says, oh, I know about the union pouring money into political candidates well enough, right? So the union's going to endorse somebody. And I guess they figure there are enough people that work for that union or enough people associated that are just going to trust it and not really, because, I mean, look at how many Americans don't vote, right? I mean, this last election, those numbers, I don't know about that. But when you talk about a country, how many people are in this country? Over 300 million? And
400 million.
400 million. And supposedly the last election we had was what, 80 million to like 76 million?
It was quite a lot.
So you're talking about 150 million. It's quite a lot, but it's nothing close to the entirety of the country.
Right.
It's not even half.
No.
So when you consider, if
a lot of that population also can't vote. So,
but most of these people are probably thinking to themselves,
Unless they're illegal.
My union definitely, yeah, but they are the ones voting. Anyways, my union's definitely going to pick the politician that's going to help us the most. I'm not even going to look at it. They'll probably just toss money in. Because otherwise, what would be the purpose of a super PAC other than to be a funnel for just money flying in the air that just goes straight to somebody? If everybody made their own informed decision and went and did it themselves, there'd be no purpose for a super PAC. If a CEO or an owner wants to make their own donations, then they can go do that. But it looks like creating a super PAC compels the people underneath to just throw it in there.
right. Well, you're giving your union, like, okay, since again I deal with unions, you're giving your union the power to now, you know, fund a campaign, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Are you reading Twitch?
which then, no. Why?
I Am Not You says Tulsi Gabbard took Chris's contribution and put it towards the 10th layer of makeup on her face.
Oh, that's fucked up.
And then says a super PAC is money laundering.
Yeah, basically it is.
So like I said, I just feel like it's taking advantage of people that aren't doing the research. Most people won't do the research, and they're just making they're creating a convenient way to just funnel money into a place that somebody else made the decision for. And he's stating it's money laundering, which it looks like every rich person, that's all they're good at, is just money laundering. And money laundering. So,
or you look at like what the central banks did and getting all these politicians like the Clintons, the Bush family, to go and screw up places like Yugoslavia, but the Czechs and the Slavs, and basically creating separation between them, kicking one group out, having them fight against them, and then killing off one side, and then of course going over there pretending to be a helpful asset to pretty much to destroy the country, get them to split up and partitioned into smaller countries to join the UN, to have to put out loans with the central banks so they gain all this extra profit, the banks do, keeping them in constant turmoil, constant debt, and always having to borrow more money just to stay afloat, also shutting down their businesses because they manipulated it so poorly, so well on their part, but so poorly to the people, that they basically were outsourcing for crops and automotive stuff to basically bring in cheaper products that the people could buy, killing all the local businesses that were supporting the community and destroying the whole community.
Like what happened here.
Yes.
You could have just gone straight for it. So I'm going to bring up these pictures that you sent over Facebook. I want you to tell us what we're looking at here.
That is the Denver airport.
And it's a swastika.
Uh-huh.
Now, swastika, let's just correct it a bit. Like not in more modern history, but
the reverse swastika was supposed to be a sign of peace.
Right. So that is the reverse form of the ancient Egyptian symbol.
Yes.
So that is the airport. That's cool.
Uh-huh.
I should stop being sarcastic because some people aren't going to understand my sarcasm. They're going to be like, oh, you hear what that guy just said?
And supposedly there's a lot of underground tunnels and passageways in the airport. Of course, they're trying to say, oh, no, that was just for an old system used to port luggage. But how can we really be sure? There's a lot of limestone there, definitely easy to dig into. But some of the murals are pretty dark and sinister if you take a look at that one there.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then, of course, you look at the Masonic
stuff.
Stone and some of the layouts there talking of possible future famine. This is actually where I was watching that America Unearthed, where I come up with some of that. But there were people talking before that, back several years ago, that there was going to be future famine, like a future event that was going to be created and put out there. And lo and behold, COVID-19. So you really wonder.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell because the media is not covering fucking anything virtually.
No.
That isn't part of what they're saying. So we're seeing, online and from people's cameras and people disseminating information on their own. Like we recently heard that Canada is having a gigantic pushback. Ottawa dropped all mandates, supposedly, but you won't hear anything about that. Anything about that on the news. So we do not accurately have any idea what's happening anywhere else in the world.
Now,
Everything we're hearing is skewed.
That I've heard with the leader of the trucking campaign, that he was a gay conservative pushing LGBT type stuff that had a possible bank source going back to the same bank source, which would be George Soros, as Black Lives Matter and Antifa. So I'm not saying that that's true. It's just a speculation, but it makes you think of the whole Sun Tzu thing of making people believe their position, making them believe that something is actually working in favor of the people and the people are winning, and then let you think that you've won before they blast you with the next thing.
Right.
So you've got that open-ended question. Is that trucking thing legitimate? Is it real? Sure, you see people there, you see people participating. They definitely believe in it. And it would be great if it is true for the whole entire meaning of it. But if it's a ploy, then what are they going to do next? It's just an open question.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts?
I'm waiting to see if Chris is going to say something.
I mean, I don't really have much thoughts on that. I agree with him.
Yeah.
If anybody has thoughts, please comment as well.
It's like monkeys on a truck. So
yes,
I Am Not You also throws in right after the super PAC. So he worked at a job that had a union. He says, research or not, you have zero input as to who the union puts the money towards. You also have no say as to whether you pay union dues or not. The only choice is whether you are officially a union member or not, but the dues are still taken from your check. So I was just saying why, if it had not been a scheme and money laundering, why would it be operated that way? That was the point I was trying to make. If anyone could go out and actually do some fucking research on the candidates past, on who they're associated with. I mean, we're seeing these spider webs everywhere of massive nepotism, massive money laundering, massive insider trading. I'm sure this happened for all of history, but you should have the option. And all I was saying was, you know, that
But you have the option to give to the PAC. It's not like
no, what
so
he's saying is
use-
when he worked
Union?
for the union, his
Right.
union sent the money in, and that was it.
So union dues and PAC are two separate things. So yes, you have to pay union dues if it's a union job. So and the union dues, so like, all right, for the guys that pay union dues by me, well, that I pay for one in particularly, those union fees pay for a lot of stuff. And again, the union guys thinks that they're paying towards their health insurance. They're not. The company that employs me actually pays fully for their health insurance.
But don't all of the unions don't they come to their own deals in that profession, and they all work kind of differently?
So, well, I'll tell you this because I know what it costs. The union dues is $75 a month. The health insurance costs the company about $1,800 a month. So the union dues does not cover the health insurance.
Okay, but
whatsoever.
no. But the point that I'm making is there the potential? So yes, he just said Chris's union may be different. Mine was not. There was zero choice as to where the money collected went.
But so out of the union dues that was taken from him, part of that money went to the political action committee.
That's what he's claiming. The union made a decision on who they were going to donate to, and they made the
but
donation.
Right.
But it was
part
taken
of
from the
his union
dues.
Dues was part of the PAC.
He said absolutely.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, that's what I was
Because-
trying to say. Maybe the union that is associated with your job because the unions have to strike deals with whomever they're a union, whoever they're supplying their workers to or defending their workers to. So I would imagine, like, the construction union isn't exactly going to work the same way as the bus drivers union because it's a different job. There's going to be different negotiations. They all kind of get price increases. I mean, pay increases at different times. Right. So. Because I would bet $1 trillion he knows. He's obsessive over that stuff, and it always used to piss him off what some of the things they used to do were. So, and he also said the swastika is not from Egypt. It is from Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. It is the symbol of divinity and spiritualism. I'm pretty sure it's also Egypt used it as well. I guess we'll take a look into that. And then he wrote the trucker thing is being covered, but they originally claimed it was a protest against the rising gas costs. When they could no longer claim that, they turned to the vilification of the truckers. Right. And then he said, I know, one idiot tried to get me to run for union rep.
What, like a shop steward?
No, he worked in the educational system.
Right, but like every location has a shop steward, which is like the direct contact between the employees and the union.
That sounds like what they were trying to get him for.
Yeah, because there are union reps, but the union rep is actually employed by the union.
Ah, okay.
I was trying to remember something I had heard recently from a guy who runs Tennessee Stands, speaking of the reasons that unions are not good and how they use them to basically change laws in their favor and control the people because they're the head of the people in that sense.
So you could look at it that way, but as for the employees, the unions actually do a lot for them. So their health care is completely paid for. No, they're not making $1 billion a year, but the pay is actually pretty good. Their benefits are very good. Like their health insurance, their co-pays and whatnot are very low. They have really good benefits. The company also puts in for their retirement. They have a 401k program, so they're getting a pension, and they can, and that pension again is completely paid for by the company.
Yeah.
Um, uh, does so? My father was a union guy, and when he had a a legal situation, the union provided him with a union lawyer. They have training classes that they provide. You can go and get classes on almost anything, anything from computers to refrigeration, plumbing, almost anything. Um, and they're all free. So yes,
Definitely some
you
good
can
benefits.
ton of good benefits, and that's all covered in your $75 dues. So, uh, you know, it's there's pluses and then there's minuses to union jobs. So, but also trying to terminate some of these guys who are just the worst.
It's
The
impossible.
com- it's very hard. You have to have a lot of proof, a lot of warning letters, show that this is a very bad employee or whatnot, because they're going to come with their union rep, and then there's going to be an arbitration, and if you don't have the right kind of documentation, you cannot get rid of this employee. Where if it was like someone like me who works in an office, I'm fucked. I'm out of there quick. They will fire me in a heartbeat if I did what most of these guys get away with.
So, I am not you also said the campus union rep was trying to find her replacement and tried to recruit me. I am friendly with her, but she was dumb as hell and obviously had no idea who she was talking to. And then said, our union was set up the same way as Chris is describing, but the city of New York pays my pension, not the union itself.
Oh, so he was. Oh, so he was a city employee. What was it?
CUNY.
CUNY. But I'm trying to think of the union. Right, right. So, right, you collect your pension through the city.
Right.
So,
And he said, yeah, you couldn't get rid of union workers. It was impossible.
yeah, no, it's really hard.
So,
So, right now, funny. I just want to.
yeah.
I work right next to the Waldorf Astoria, and the Waldorf Astoria, if nobody knows, was bought out by a Chinese company. They
What a shock.
they shut it down, and they've been renovating it for the last since 2014. So 8 years they're renovating the Waldorf Astoria. Um, they're not. I don't know if all the employees or all the construction workers aren't union or just some of them. So what happens is if you're using non-union employees, the I don't know who does it, but they come with a giant inflatable rat, and that rat sits outside the building, the construction area, the whole time until they hire union employees. And they have so every Wednesday at the office we hear the protests. It's an hour long, and they're there with the whistles, screaming about how they're not using union employees. Problem with using union employees is that it drives the price of construction way, 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 way up because of their package. So, like, the construction company or whoever's paying the construction company has to pay, you know, $50 an hour to the employee plus the 50 or $60 an hour for that the rest of their package, which is their health benefits and yada yada yada. So non-union might be half that. So uh, you know,
No, that makes
they
sense.
really they tie up uh, the construction in the city. So
Well,
and I know a lot of my friends are union guys. If I start talking shit about unions, I get shit on by all of them. But the point is, with COVID, I can see a lot of companies now going non-union because they want to save money. So I think they're going to be shit out of luck.
really?
Well, right, because getting union employees costs a fuck ton more.
So they can choose to go non-union?
Of course you can, but you're going to have that rat. You're going to have the protests. You a lot of the jobs are union, but you can find non-union guys. I mean, it's not like there aren't non-union guys. There are.
It sounds like a strategy and the end of some possible bankers to get rid of the unions for other reasons, possibly.
Oh, listen, the unions, like we just saw about super PACs, they draw a lot of money for politicians, so their campaigns and whatnot. So
Yeah, they're part of the system. They decide how things go.
But I'm saying, again,
where did that all
thinking
start?
opposite,
Mafia.
just
Mhm.
opposite sides. If they're wanting to kill off governments, could it be a possible way to do that?
Well, sure. We're watching the corporations take over everything.
I mean, basically, it's corporations that run this country. It's not some dickhead we elect for 4 years. You know, it's Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell are just like little puppets on strings, and Pfizer's pulling that one on the asshole really fucking hard. I mean, that's basically what's going on in this country. It's corporations running this country. It's not people we elect.
By the way, that stone that you had up there, that was also from the Colorado airport, Denver. And if you notice, it says New World Airport.
Well,
Yes.
we're going to go.
Like New World Order.
We're headed right back to that. 1 second. It actually said that.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that there are rail systems that connect all across the country underground.
And it's obviously saying the Grand Lodge, whatever. So wait, that's the capstone of what? That's of that horse,
It's
right?
It's in the
capstone that's
airport.
Inside the airport.
Right.
Right next to these different glyphs that are on the floor, one of them being made up of letters that some said had to do with gold and silver, but others speculated that it was a sign of a coming pandemic.
Now, what I would be interested in is where in this do they feel that it's calling a pandemic?
That's what I don't understand.
I mean, we're obviously not reading the whole thing. That edges are cut off.
Well, that's actually a different image. I did not send you that image.
Okay. Let's see. And then we got this guy. The correlation between Lucifer and Venus can also be seen in the mythology of the Americas, where he appears in the figure of the horned and feathered snake god Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl. I didn't realize. I thought Quetzalcoatl was supposed to be the equivalent of Jesus, not the equivalent of Lucifer. I've got to go over that stuff again. So, okay. So you wanted me to read this page? Or...
Well, I just sent you different parts because we were looking at Lucifer, and there were some interesting pieces and parts in there about it.
Okay. So here, to older and contemporary texts from neighboring cultures, which show that the two main representatives of evil in the Bible, Satan and Lucifer, are not the same entity. Fortunately, we do not need to immerse ourselves in the literature because there's a quite explicit statement in the Bible itself. Isaiah 14:12, How thou art fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. The morning star is, of course, Venus. The Bible, therefore, I don't know, I can't see what that word is, identifies Lucifer with the planet Venus. It might at first seem counterintuitive to equate the goddess of Venus in Greece and Rome, Aphrodite to the Greeks, with Lucifer in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Venus, Aphrodite, is female and seems more life-enhancing, but in reality there are key points of similarity. Both Lucifer and Venus, Aphrodite, are bound up with animal desire and sexuality. The apple is the fruit associated with both. Lucifer tempts Eve with an apple, whilst Paris hands Venus an apple in a gesture that precipitates the abduction of Helen and the great war of the ancient world. The apple is universally the fruit of Venus because if you slice an apple in two, the path that Venus traces in the sky over a 40-year period is described there as a 5-pointed star pinpointed by the position of the pips. Lucifer and Venus are also ambiguous figures. Lucifer is evil, but he is a necessary evil. Without Lucifer's intervention, proto-humanity would not have evolved beyond a vegetative form of life. As a result of Lucifer's intervention in history, we are animated, both in the sense that we can move about the surface of the planet and also in the sense that we are moved by desire.
Just a quick interlude there. The reason they say that is because they believe that we come from plant life. And as we evolved, we only go to the plant life realm when we sleep. And we come back to the human life, which we were set in an animation by Lucifer, the light bearer. And that just a little interlude that is also within the same text.
You know, the funny thing is I had read for a long time they were claiming that Darwinism was just something that they made up to kind of throw people off from what they truly believe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to have a total separate episode on how much of science. I mean, it's becoming obvious that a lot of what's being told to us is highly skeptical, regardless of whose mouth it's coming out of or what doctrines they have or title they have. They are crisscrossing. They're stating one thing one day, and then it becomes another thing another day, and swearing.
This here in this text was all taught in mystery schools.
So every mystery school is rooted of Lucifer, is what you're saying.
They spoke very much of it throughout. I don't know if that means that they went to the Luciferian side or if they just spoke of it.
So very quickly, I am not you, in response to Chris, I think, said, plus all the time off and regulations that protect union workers that non-union workers do not get. And then he just said, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am with the root and the offspring of David and the bright morning star. Jesus and Lucifer are both referred to as the morning star in the Bible, hence the confusion. Yes.
Also, Catholicism, the sign of the cross, if you think about where the location is when they do the sign of the cross, it's like an inverted cross.
Wait, what's an inverted cross?
When they do the sign of the cross like that, it's like an inverted cross. And we were taught to do that all growing up through the Catholic schools, Catholic Church.
We are doing an inverted cross.
Uh-huh.
Because the length is much.
Uh-huh.
Well, why does the Pope wear a yarmulke?
Good question. And even that, John Paul II was not even Catholic.
Is the recent one Catholic?
I don't even know. I'd have to look.
Well, we went over him like 2 episodes ago. Yeah. He's a Jesuit.
He's a Jesuit.
So, yeah. So just to finish that thing right there, I'll just go over that last one. So without his intervention, we wouldn't have evolved beyond a vegetative form of life. And as a result, Lucifer's intervention in history, we are animated, both in the sense that we can move around the surface of the planet and also in the sense that we are moved by desire. An animal has a conscious awareness of itself as a distinct entity that is denied to plants. To say that Adam and Eve knew they were naked is to say that they became aware that they had bodies. Many beautiful representations of Venus have come down to us from the ancient world, but there were terrifying misrepresentations too. Behind the image of a woman of matchless beauty lurked the terrifying serpent woman. You know, I've known for years that behind all the matchless beauty lurked terrifying serpent women my whole life.
That sounds like a personal issue.
I was waiting to hear Chris cackle. I was just...
I knew exactly where you were going with that as soon as you read it.
Am I Luciferian? Because I knew that.
Well, it goes with the name, doesn't it?
I think someone's going to be making you sleep with the bird tonight.
Oh, I'm already sleeping with the bird. Let's see. Now, let's see here. So we also have this last one. So this is Loki. The Norse equivalent to Lucifer, usually portrayed as a beautiful and fiery god, but also evil, quick-witted, and cunning. 19th century illustration by R. Savage. You know, I should make you read these things. I've been reading all night here. The evolution of animal life and its characteristic method of reproduction, sex, brought death with it. That's true. That's very true. As soon as hunger and desire were felt, so too were dissatisfaction, frustration, sorrow, and fear. I like this book. So, who is it who tempts Eve? Who is the serpent who inflames the world with desire? We probably all feel we know the answer to this question, but naively. The problem is that those in charge of our spiritual development have kept us at a nursery level of understanding. Mm-hmm. Man, this book's got a lot of truths. This is the PDF you sent us?
Yeah, this is The Secret History of the World for Those Who Would Like to Know by Mark Booth.
This is very... So I had realized, too, when we were reading the Wikipedia article, that was actually the name behind it was Mark Dice, not Booth. I thought that same exact author was quoted in in that article in Wikipedia, but I was wrong. So let me see. And then you sent something else here. So what are we looking at right now?
That is actually from Sandusky, Ohio.
It's a protractor.
Which was
we went over this.
Also built by Masons.
Yeah, it's the Masonic symbol.
Yeah.
On Elm Street.
Yeah, some of my family helped build Sandusky, and even it is known that Al Capone would go and hang out in one of the basements near the downtown theater on Main Street and just hang out with his buddies all the time.
So where would Main Street run in
like dead center,
parallel to that?
the dead center line.
Could that be where the mythology of Elm Street came from?
Possibly.
You'd find Capone next to in like a really creepy basement next to the burner.
Also, one of my great aunts had a hotel, which was also a whorehouse.
Okay.
And Charles Dickens stayed there.
Can I get a discount?
It's long gone. It burnt down. They knew you were coming.
Oh, man. So yeah, it's but I forgot what were we talking about what were we going back and forth about before as we were looking at these pictures. There was something we were talking about that I was going to respond to, and I completely forgot what the topic was.
Unions?
No, it wasn't unions. Like, okay, corporations. Right now, so I kind of wanted to bring this up. I don't know if this is the episode to do it, and poor Chris is like probably dying over there because I want to remind everybody.
He's looking forward to an ice storm.
We all still work day jobs, and you know, as as successful as the podcast is, well, I work a night job, but we all still work to feed ourselves. But yeah, something I wanted to get into was BlackRock, which is directly tied to all of the companies that are directly tied to the Illuminati, or the theory of the Illuminati, right? And right now, if you look at what's going on, we are indefinitely being strong-armed, if that's the way you would look at it, being strong-armed by corporations. Everything we're doing is being dictated by corporations. The government, like, if you looked at the donations, I don't want to go too far into this, but if you looked at the amount of money that's been donated to every individual congressperson from Pfizer in this past 2 years, you would think that if we were in a horrible, scary pandemic, that these Congress people would not need an incentive to write anything from Pfizer into law. They have been getting millions and millions and millions of dollars. This is all stuff that people can look for and research for themselves. It's publicly available information. They need to report the money that's being donated to them by these companies. And Pfizer, you know, I would think that the thought of death would scare people enough to want to go and get it on their own. I wouldn't think that Pfizer would have to advertise itself. I wouldn't think that they'd have to sponsor all these news shows. They wouldn't have to sponsor radio shows. They wouldn't have to pay these Congress people. It doesn't make any sense. You would think that in the middle of a pandemic, they would say, holy shit, we need to get the fuck out of this. What's the proper way to go about it? And they'd say, okay, let's try and get everybody poked. Let's try and do everything we can to end this thing. You wouldn't think that this company is going around lobbying and putting millions of dollars in these people's pockets. You wouldn't think that it was necessary. You would think that in this current situation, people would feel obligated or afraid enough to go and do that on their own. But there is millions and millions and millions of dollars coming out of that company being donated to these people's campaigns. And it's ridiculous. The amount of money going out is ridiculous. And not to mention that they have had record high amounts of gain these past 2 years. And that's coming off of one of the biggest lawsuits of all time. One of the biggest damage lawsuits of all time. Pfizer was the biggest payout ever. And I'm going to...
Trying to get away with not letting things be known for 75 years.
Yeah. Isn't that absolutely horrendous?
I mean, I don't know why people don't question that. I mean, how could you be comfortable with not knowing data for 75 years when most likely you're going to be dead by that time?
So I just
take their word to get something stuck in you.
And they have immunity from liability from the pokes. They have immunity.
Immunity, yeah.
So now let me bring you here. So nobody could say I'm lying unless you want to claim the government's lying, which I would be compelled to agree with you. But this is directly from the United States Department of Justice. Okay? Wednesday, September 2nd, 2009. Just to give you an idea, Justice Department announces largest healthcare fraud settlement in its history. Pfizer agreed to pay $2.3 billion for fraudulent marketing. This is something people need to fucking think about. Like, that was the first thing that came up the second I put it into Google. I cannot emphasize enough. All people have to do, and Google's not exactly not filtering things either. They're reprehensible with the amount of things that they're filtering. But regardless, I pulled this up immediately. Now, that has nothing to do with the opioid crisis, because we didn't even get into that. I mean, now I'm starting to rant. I'm just saying, this is blatantly obvious for anybody who wants to open their eyes for more than 10 seconds. So you're trusting these companies, and then you're trusting these politicians that are trying to put into law mandates for a medical procedure, and they're getting tipped off millions of dollars.
I actually have known several people, including family and friends, who suffer neurological issues, myocarditis, inflammation of the heart, inflammation of the kidneys, liver, and paralyzation from the waist down, and some deaths. But, oh, no, you can't say that. And, oh, no, it's not true. They had other underlying health issues, which is what they try to say about COVID-19 too. But, oh, it's actually reversed for COVID-19. I forgot. Everything's COVID-19.
It's scary. And something that I'm realizing, you know what? It has nothing to even do with that, right? Let's throw that out the window. Let's just question ourselves for one moment about what the pharmaceutical industry has done in the past 20 years that's been in any way, shape, or form helpful.
It's profits and control.
Look at the medications that people cannot get off of, no matter how hard they try. Look at the opioid pandemic. Look at what they're doing to people with what's the new thing that's been really, it's a psychoactive drug to adjust serotonin levels. Xanax. I mean, I grew up, I knew tons of people that took Xanax. And it messes people up so bad. It's almost as though their brain chemistry never goes back to normal. And we're in a country right now that when you watch television, they are literally advertising this stuff to you.
Yep.
They're
It's worse than the cigarette
advertising it.
commercials years ago.
You're supposed to go to a doctor, and the point of the stupid fucking doctor is that he studied this bullshit for fucking 30 years, has knowledge of how different drugs, from reading all the clinical trials and all the other stuff, they have knowledge of this stuff, and they're making the best educated guess they could make and trying to figure out how to alleviate you from pain and stress as a result. That's what that doctor's supposed to be for. We're not supposed to be in a society where you go to the doctor and you just gave yourself, I was watching this advertisement and I realized I'm having trouble sleeping and maybe my willy don't get up. Like, that's not for you to judge. You're not a fucking
those
doctor.
Doctors only focus on one area of medicine. So if you go to the doctor and you've got a urinary issue and you go and see an ear, nose, and throat person, they're going to give you an ear, nose, and throat answer.
Mm-hmm. That too. They're all specialists. But the point that I'm trying to make is we shouldn't live in a society where they are advertising these medications.
Correct.
To you, to the point where you go to the doctor and you've already figured out what you need. Oh, I can really use some Zoloft. And then you start listing off the whole thing that the Zoloft commercial told you it alleviates.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to be the way it is.
In World War II, 1945, Hitler starting the whole process of fluoride in the water. And that alone coats the pineal gland and basically causes what your pineal gland not only is considered the third eye, your connection to the spirit realm, but also it regulates your thyroid. So then all this hypothyroidism starts to develop, which is all your chemical processes of the body. And pretty much it's a downtrodden hill of health issues. Mm-hmm. And then back in the 60s, they used to put iodine in your baking flour. Well, then they decided, we're going to take that out and put bromide in your flour instead. Oh, and we'll just bleach the white salt and we'll put iodine in that. But that bromide actually leached your body of iodine, causing a whole list of health issues. That way, people started developing goiters. So they've been working at this for quite some time.
Oh yeah. Well, in an upcoming episode, we're gonna talk about Project Paperclip, because I don't think most people are even aware of that, and I don't think they're aware of all the maneuvers that were used. Everybody wants to bring that up over and over again. They bring up Hitler, World War II, and the Nazis, and they have no clue how that actually kind of ended, what this country did, and this is all verifiable information that was released by our own intelligence agencies, Freedom of Information Act, yada, yada, yada.
Not to mention Stalin was way worse than Hitler. Not to mention the Catholic Church was way worse than that.
We know, for anyone who's actually looked into any of this, it is all, at this point, should be common knowledge. And we really, really went in bad after that. And I am not used to, speaking of Zoloft, Mike Tyson once told a room of reporters, I'm on Zoloft to prevent me from killing y'all. Wow. So, but with that, I believe I hear Chris back there packing up. I just realized that we're past midnight with you, huh, bud?
Yeah, I got to be up in 6 hours.
Wow. Oh, man. Should have shot me a text.
I did.
You did?
An hour ago.
It got caught in a drift.
Oh, you know me. And you sent it to Signal.
Well, that's the only thing I use, is Signal. So I don't know what you want me to use.
You forced me to use inferior products, like trying to get me to use Android.
Hey, I use a Samsung, so hey.
Don't drag me down. You got to use Apple Messages.
I've been on Google phones for the last 7 years, and it drives them nuts.
Yeah, I love my Samsung. The S21 takes phenomenal pictures.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, I could take some pictures for you on the S9.
You can. Oh no, I don't want those.
No, please.
But with that, I think we covered a ton of ground. For anyone who's watching and is wondering about Mundane, he is still part of the family. He's got some other stuff he has to take care of. So he's out taking care of that. As I've said, we all have day jobs, night jobs, to help support ourselves. He's been doing a crazy amount between the new house, the move, he was living out in an area that didn't even get internet for like 4 months. So he's got a ton of stuff to take care of. And he'll be back at some point. Right now, we got Shane Farmer filling in.
I'm glad to be here.
We're really happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to have you.
I do want to ask, is there any merch from the store, the cafe, that people can buy you?
Yes. Thank you for helping me host correctly. So CamarillaCafe.com, you can go there. We got a whole bunch of merch. We got shirts with alien faces on it and all types of shit. Take a look. We have mugs. That helps support the show. We do not make money from advertisements. And yes, and we all work to kind of keep our head above water. We share this information because we feel like it's the right thing to do.
And please, I encourage anybody out there, get your Camarilla Cafe product, take a picture with it, and post it on our page.
That sounds good. You're a genius. Yeah. So Shane, tell them where they could find you.
You can find me at remraft.com. It is Farmer spelled backwards because my name is Shane Farmer. So www.remraft.com, and you can check out everything that I do there, aside from my crazy pictures and singing and all the other marketing type stuff and video and photography stuff I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
So check it out. Let me know what you think. Send me an email if you have questions. I'm always happy to chat.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for coming on. You're going to be here next week, right?
Yes, most definitely.
All right. So we're going to continue this. Chris, do you have anything else to say besides let me go to fucking sleep?
No, just let me go to fucking sleep.
And the world is and the earth is flat.
Hey, Chris, stay chill. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Shade.
Thank you, everybody. What was that?
What?
Did you say in the earth is flat?
I didn't say anything. You're hearing things.
Just tell people your truth.
Sure.
Lou is short. No, just kidding.
Oh, man. And with that, thank you, everybody, for tuning into episode 15. We should be back on Monday. Thanks for the support. And, see you next time.
Good night.